You are now tuned in to the NBA Deeper Dive.
What does that remind me of? I don't know. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Awesemo.com NBA Deeper Dive, presented by Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. I'm Dave Loughran at Loughy_D, joined back, exhumed from the grave. He's alive. Adam Scherer at Ship My Money DFS. Glad to have you back, bro. Glad to see you still have a pulse. We're in business, man. How you feeling?
Feeling okay. Glad to be back. Not congested anymore, so that's nice. It's miserable doing shows when you can't breathe and like you're sneezing everywhere and feel disgusting. So yeah, I mean now I'm just it's still like fatigue and everything, but I can deal with that as long as I'm not just grossing everybody out and sneezing and coughing everywhere.
The fatigue blows though.
Oh yeah.
That's the worst part. But when I was dealing with it, I would tell Jordan, when I'm not talking, get me off the screen, because I was either coughing or nasty stuff is coming up or you're sneezing. I mean, if you were on screen for an hour show without flipping back scenes like we used to do, there's no way you could do it. It would be a disaster.
Oh no, even doing the last day before I took off, I did like my 5-minute tournament plays video and the short video with Greg, and so with that you're just on screen the whole time. And I remember at one point like I lost my voice and I needed to cough, but I'm talking and like trying to finish my sentence, and it was just like a race of like, am I going to completely lose my voice or just start like choking everywhere?
And that's like a 5-minute video.
Yeah.
Anyway, glad you're feeling a little bit better. Adam Palmer says, Adam, was it COVID with the super chat? Thanks, Adam. Was it COVID or severe case of bar chicken? Forgot that. I'm assuming that. Okay, it was COVID, right? Confirmed.
Yeah, it was COVID.
Okay. I'm assuming tetanus shot.
I assume that's what we were going for.
Right. Tenacious shot. I don't know, but either way. He's back, everybody, and we've got a 5-game slate to break down. And you're back home, back in the comfort. I mean, I know New York was cool, but it had to have sucked being sick, and like maybe it was better in a hotel room. But I would think being home would be just a little bit more comfortable. Yeah,
no, I mean, I wanted to get home. Like, you get tired of it, especially because that was my second week in the same hotel room. So I was already just sick of the hotel in general. But I didn't want to, like, switch hotels and then have that, like, 3-hour waiting period where I'd have to go, like, sit at a bar with COVID and wait for my hotel room to be available.
You think you would have ripped a shot at least, or no?
I mean, I would have, like, I would have had 3 hours to kill. I would have had to.
Oh, right. Even sick. It just has to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to, like, just sit there and do nothing.
Right.
But so I was already, tired of that hotel room, and then just not being able to leave it for like a week was not a good time.
Anyway, happy to have you guys with us. As always, the crew is back for a Monday. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. Let's get it up to 200. We got 813 people watching out of the gate. We're a couple minutes into this one. We got 82 likes to get to 200. If you forgot to do so, I don't blame you, but let's get it done and let's get it started. Shout out to Jordan Klein, as always, producing today's show. We love Jordan behind the virtual glass. First thing is first, and by the way, subscribe to the channel. I almost forgot. Subscribe to the channel. 72,500 followers. Thanks for an awesome football season. We got a ton of shit coming up for NFL. And then if you want to join the channel down below, see that join now. You get the custom emojis, the free super chats each month, the badges, all that good stuff. And we'll always prioritize your questions and comments along with our Discord members. So if you want to do that, hit it up. Join the team. If not, that's cool. All right. First things first. Is there any glaring value today in the sense that you can just kind of do whatever you want? Because I know you've still been playing, but most of the last week, you've just been able to pile on value plays and load up on top tier options.
Yeah, it doesn't really seem that way, at least right now, because even like with the injury news that we're waiting on, we're waiting on OKC news with Lou Dort, we're waiting on Chicago news with Zach LaVine and Kobe White. Even if those guys are out, it opens up more value, but those teams have sort of seen their prices adjust anyway. Like the OKC guys that last game were 3,300 and 3,400, now they're 4,300 and 4,400. The guys that we've been looking to for value on Chicago, like Devontae Green, they're still playable if LaVine and White are out, but they're not the glaring, very obvious values that they were before. So I do think the value is a little bit more difficult to come by tonight, but also you don't have anyone really to pay up for. On DraftKings, you have two guys above 10K, the most expensive of which is Steph Curry at 10.5. So it all still ends up being pretty relative. Like I think you can still mostly get to the guys you want to get to. It's not a situation where you're like, Jokic is 12.5 and I really want to get there, but I can't find any value because nobody's priced that expensive.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Let's dive into it then. We got 5 games to touch on here. We'll kick it off with Toronto and Charlotte. I can't wait till we get to Charlotte. I got to get your opinion on Gordon Hayward because you and I have talked, and we'll get there, but you and I have talked extensively about coming back from health and safety protocols from COVID. Is there some type of lingering effect that some of these guys suffer? You might be able to make that argument with Hayward, but we'll get there. And our projections for ownership have him pretty high today. But we'll kick it off on the other side of this one with the Toronto Raptors. Adam, 1-point favorites, 224 total in this one. And keep in mind, too, for anybody watching, Charlotte plays at essentially the fastest pace in the league alongside the Houston Rockets. Defensively, they're a bottom 5 team, according to defensive rating. They do make for an exceptionally good matchup. And outside of some underwhelming offensive performances lately, they make for a great matchup because they can usually keep pace offensively with the inadequacies of their own defense, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, normally they're like the perfect team to target players against in DFS because, like you're saying, they play fast, they don't defend well, and they're one of the more efficient offensive teams in the NBA. So you don't typically run into that issue. Like a lot of times the teams that are really good to target from a pace and defense standpoint are also just really, really bad and just get destroyed pretty frequently. That doesn't typically happen with Charlotte. So it's always a team that you're really interested in going up against. And then here you get this Toronto team that we're always interested in playing guys from because Nick Nurse runs such a tight rotation. And that's something you'll see on both sides of the ball in this game most likely. So I think in general, this is probably the most appealing game, like top to bottom on the slate. And on the Toronto side, it's kind of just more of what we've seen from them, constantly. Siakam and Van Vliet, clearly the top 2 guys here. Siakam has his power forward eligibility back on DraftKings, which is nice. Van Vliet is still underpriced at 8,500. They both look great. Then you look to the other 3 starters in Anunoby, Barnes, and Trent. They're all closer to correctly priced, but it's still not like it would be surprising at all if any of these guys have a big game. They're all likely to play 36 to 38 minutes. So they all look pretty good. And then kind of the 6th guy that you can throw some darts at, he was in both of my tournament plays videos earlier, but also a very low probability play is Boucher, who you can't really count on to play more than like 18 to 20 minutes. But he's a really good point per minute guy. And if for one reason or another he gets to 24 minutes instead of 20, he's likely to be a really good play at low ownership. So I think the 5 starters, you can feel very comfortable with their playing time. You can feel comfortable with their production. Boucher, a lot more of a wild card, but certainly has a ceiling.
And, something we talk about, you mention it all the time as well, is the team is healthy for the most part, right? But the two things that stand out is a lot of times when you get teams like this, if they run a relatively deep rotation, you're not really all that interested in them when they're healthy, right? When they don't have value open up. But you just have such absurd minutes. Like last game, even on the second of a back-to-back, you've got them all playing like 35 plus minutes, many of them up close to 40 minutes. And they played overtime period the night before that. I mean, very simply put, Nick Nurse just doesn't care.
Yeah, I mean, he has specifically said, so he had said that they were going to start running a deeper rotation. That never happened. Then he was kind of asked about, if it's sustainable or whatever to play these guys this many minutes. And he essentially said, like, these guys want to play that many minutes. Like, I'm not forcing them to do it. They want to be out there. They want to play a lot, and that's what we're going to do. So at this point, I don't think there's any reason to, not trust that we're going to continue getting that sort of rotation.
I'm just curious where they sit in the standings, because we're getting that. Yeah, they're sixth right now. So they're going to keep playing, right? Anyway.
Yeah, I would assume so.
Top options for Toronto?
Van Vliet and Siakam.
All right. On the other side of this one, I told you I wanted to talk about Gordon Hayward. It's not good right now, Adam. He's only been back for 2 games, but forgive me if I have some hesitation here. I get that his price is the cheapest it's been. I'm going to guess all season. I can't imagine he's been this cheap.
There's almost no way it's been cheaper. I haven't looked, but I'd be shocked.
If he was cheaper, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just no way. Coming off an 0 for 7 game. Now, I'm not saying that Gordon Hayward can't bounce back, right? And last game, they got trashed. He played 22 minutes. He played 29 minutes in his return, shot 3 for 13. So it's not like he wasn't shooting. And it's only 2 games. Totally get that. It's only 2 games. But I do at least want to broach the subject of, should we be at least talking about the fact that he was out for 2 weeks and now he comes back and does not look very good at all.
Given that he's 5K, I don't think we really need to talk about it. It's just one of those things
his
where
ownership is very high as well. Sorry, I should have mentioned that.
But it's just one of those things where I think that just viewing, assuming he's normal, assuming that he's going to produce at his average rates for the season, I think you can kind of just keep it in the context of salary and ownership, which, like, normally that's going to be the case anyway. But if he were, let's say, 6K and getting ownership, then it would be more of, I think you're taking on a bigger risk because you don't know if he's healthy. It's really difficult to quantify, but he hasn't looked good in his couple of games back. But I think that salary decrease basically just alleviates any of the risks that, come with that. And I think you're probably just doing more harm than good if you're going to say, oh, well, I don't care that, he's 17% cheaper than he normally is. I still just think he is not physically there. Like you're just guessing at that point and not really doing yourself any favors.
It's fair. And I think a lot of that, though, is the result of there just not being a ton of value on this slate already. If there was, it'd be a lot easier not to load up on Hayward. His ownership also wouldn't be one of the highest on the slate. So maybe it's a moot point.
Yeah. And I mean, so I think it's still fair to say, like, maybe you can find alternatives to Gordon Hayward at 5K. I still don't think he projects as like an elite option. I think he is pretty clearly underpriced, but if I give him 32 minutes and use his rates, for the entire season, I get him to like 28 DraftKings points at 5K, which good. Like that's going to show up in your, optimal lineups, your cash lineups, but it's not like that is some score that that's hard to find someone in that same range. Even sticking on this team, Kelly Oubre for $300 more gives you a similar range of outcomes. So I'm not saying you have to just jam Gordon Hayward into tournament lineups, but I do think that the salary just alleviates any concerns I have about his health.
What type of impact do you think the expected absence, he's doubtful, of Cody Martin has on the rotation tonight? Anything significant enough to maybe inject a few more minutes into a few, essential guys' rotations?
So the two things that I think it impacts the most are, when I did the show with Josh this morning, I had talked about PJ Washington, and I said that prior to the last game when Washington was in foul trouble, you had seen Washington sort of getting minutes ahead of Cody Martin. Martin was playing like 16, 17 minutes. Then last game, Martin played a lot. Washington didn't. Now I think Washington's minutes are safer. I think it's very likely you get something like 30 minutes from Mason Plumlee and then 25, 26 minutes from Washington, with obviously some of those minutes coming alongside Plumlee. Because one thing we've seen from Charlotte consistently this year is that they're not a team where when someone goes down, they just replace them with the next guy off the bench. They're not that type of team. They've been the team that, one of the teams that they might give minutes to somebody else off the bench, but typically your main guys are getting more run as well. So I think that's likely to be the case, especially because Bouknight's doubtful as well. He would be one of the guys likely to just take Martin's minutes, but he's out. So I think it's likely that I think it basically solidifies Washington's playing time. I think it solidifies Kelly Oubre's playing time. He's another one where, typically you're going to get 27 minutes or so, but it can always fluctuate. When you take Martin off the floor, I think it just makes it more likely that you end up with around 30 minutes from Kelly Oubre.
Who else do we want to get to from the Charlotte side of this game? And I should point out too, Adam, that being that it's only a 5-game slate, I don't think there should be any hesitancy at all to load up on both sides of this game. I know sometimes people always ask, how many are you willing to play from this or from the same game? And they hate just the overall optics of seeing like one lineup with a lot of players from the same game. But there's a lot of good spots on both sides of this one, including Charlotte, I think.
Yeah, there are. And typically when you're talking about a relatively healthy team, which both of these teams are, my answer to that on any slate that isn't like 2 or 3 games is that normally I'm not going to play more than 3 from one team. And in a lot of cases, I want a run back if I do that. But this is like the perfect game for that too. Like you can very easily have, let's say, Bridges, Rozier, Hayward, run it back with Van Vliet. You're not spending that much money there. You're getting a lot of pieces from what I think is the most appealing game on the slate. So yeah, I mean, I still don't think I want like 4 guys from Charlotte or anything, but getting to 3 is fine. Obviously, Ball, Bridges, Rozier are all good options as always. Plumlee, I expect to play around 30 minutes. We talked about Washington, Hayward, and Oubre. So really, I think it's all of Ball, Bridges, Rozier, Plumlee, Oubre, Hayward, Washington are solid options.
Okay. Anyone stand out far among over the rest? Like, is it Hayward?
Hayward from a value standpoint. But again, like that is a spot where in tournaments, you're going to want to pay attention to that ownership. We have him at 26%. We do have Oubre at 25. So that is worth noting. Like, I think that they're basically the same play. I thought there was a chance that we would see Hayward's ownership sort of separate from Oubre, and that would be a really appealing spot to get to, but that isn't the case. So I think, Hayward at 5K gets a little bit of the edge over Oubre, just given that he's a little bit cheaper and they're getting the same ownership. From a tournament standpoint, I think Washington is the guy I'm most interested in just because he is only getting 10%. And I think there's a decent chance, or a pretty good chance, he plays like 26 minutes or so. But I think that, any of these guys just look good.
Do you want to set any groups, any limits on how many players from the same team on either side of this game?
The only one, so from the same team, I think it's 3. And maybe, set the rule that I was talking about before with, just force in a run back if you have 3. The thinking there being that even though these guys look good, none of them are like glaring values to the extent where they're just like, 2K underpriced or something. Like if you get a tournament winning game from LaMelo Ball and Bridges and Hayward at the same time, Charlotte probably scored a lot of points, and that probably means Toronto is also scoring a lot of points if they're still playing in the fourth quarter. So that's kind of the thinking there on why I do have interest in a run back if I go with all 3. But no issue with that. And as far as individual player groups, the only one on Charlotte that I think is like debatable, you could do max 1 of Plumlee in Washington, with the thinking there sort of being Washington's ceiling game is probably getting more minutes at center at Plumlee's expense. But even that on a 5-game slate, I don't think you have to set, because I think they can play alongside each other. They're pretty unlikely to close alongside each other, though.
All right. Last question here, because I think there are some spots we just won't need to spend as much time on. So I'm okay going a little longer here. If Plumlee does end up playing, 30 minutes, we've seen him go 30 plus in 2 of his last 3. Granted, shot volume usage, very, very low, but good rebounder, it's okay passer. He can rack up some peripherals. If Plumlee, I'm not saying you project him for that, but if he gets 30 minutes, is 11% too low?
I think it's around where it should be. I think the price
Okay.
tag is pretty much correct. Like I have him in for 30 minutes right now, gets him to like 27 DraftKings points. The one thing to keep in mind, so he's someone that his playing time has been better recently, but typically it's just difficult to get to him because he's a center who isn't, that productive. He's not bad, but he's not on par with a lot of the other center options. There's not quite as much opportunity cost at the position tonight because, for one, there's only 5 games. But then when you look at the teams on the slate, New York, Golden State, to some extent Oklahoma City, Toronto, to some extent Washington, like they don't have centers that you really love. And in the case of like Toronto with Siakam, he's power forward eligible. So the opportunity cost is a little bit lower to take shots at guys like Plumlee.
Got you. Okay. All right. Miami watched by the way, almost 300 likes. Appreciate you guys. Almost 2,000 people watching too. They're just excited to see your return. I told them all you were dead.
Pleasant surprise then, I guess.
They were shocked to see your face. I didn't tell them that. I gave them updates, as a matter of fact. All right, let's talk about Miami and Washington. Miami Heat got some questionable. I mean, we're assuming Butler's active, right? It's hard to believe he doesn't play.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be the first time that he hasn't played when I thought he would, but for now I have him in.
Yeah, and a couple of other spots, like I think they'll play. Caleb Martin's questionable. I think Max Strus is questionable too, right?
He's playing.
Yeah,
he's expected to play, and Hero's expected to not play.
Right. So I just have Hero listed as doubtful right now. Jordan, I think you've been throwing everything up on the lowers, my man. If this plays out where everyone questionable plays and Tyler Hero is out, does that benefit anyone enough to make them a priority, honestly? Or do we already have guys that we like as priorities?
I think it's more so the latter. Like Hero being out, it opens the door for you to take some, kind of tournament dart throws at guys that you probably wouldn't have any interest in otherwise. For example, a 4K Gabe Vincent, probably not going to get there, but if he plays well, he could, take on a bigger scoring role on the bench. Same can be said for Strus. Same can be said for Caleb Martin. But I think the biggest impact it has is when you look at guys like Duncan Robinson, for example, who's pulling some ownership on DraftKings. He's only 3,600, which we know he's not the most exciting DFS option, but that's pretty cheap if you're going to get 26 to 28 minutes from Robinson. When Hero's in, you run the risk of Robinson having those games where he only plays like 18 minutes because, Hero gets hot off the bench and then PJ Tucker plays over Robinson for defensive reasons or whatever, and he really disappoints. That can still happen. Any of Vincent, Strus, Martin could steal those minutes, but I think Hero being out makes it more likely that you get the normal run from Duncan Robinson. Kyle Lowry maybe picks up an extra minute or two, but I don't think that there's anyone that goes from like not someone you would have been interested in to a clear top play with Hero out.
All right. Yeah, we have Hero projected out today, but you basically for a 5-game slate just have all of these guys from Robinson to Lowry to Bam to PJ Tucker even being just solid secondary options. It was interesting to see Jimmy Butler's ownership so low. And how much of that is that we're just factoring in the questionable tag right now? And how much of it is some of the other top tier guys or, 9K plus guys are just much better options?
I think it's a combination of the two. For one, typically at this point in the day when guys are questionable, their ownership is lower than it seems like it should be. But also, he doesn't, at least for me, look that good here. There's no doubting his ceiling. Obviously, Jimmy Butler's capable of going out and throwing up a monster game on Washington, but you still have Bam Adebayo healthy. You have Kyle Lowry healthy. Adebayo cuts into Butler's usage. Lowry cuts into his assist numbers, and he is expensive. So I think it's just a situation where you can certainly play him, but you're paying for his ceiling, and he is good enough to give you the sort of game where you don't care that he was overpriced at 9,700 because 55 points plays regardless. But from like a median standpoint, I think you're looking at a low 40s projection, and you can certainly do better than that. So I think the low ownership projection, I think, is a combination of him not looking that good at his salary and him being questionable.
Okay. Anything else for Miami?
Kind of the same thing across the board. Like Bam is certainly fine at 9K. He's he should do a lot of damage against this Washington front court. I think it is worth noting, and I'd mentioned this before, but I typically don't care that much about individual defense, but I think it is worth noting that Washington's interior defense, going from earlier in the year, Daniel Gafford playing a bunch of minutes and protecting the rim, to some combination of Thomas Bryant, Montrezl Harrell, and Rui Hachimura, just should really open things up for guys like Bam. So I think he looks very good, but he's also priced up. Loughy, I think, looks reasonable. It's just a team where I think I'm going to individually be getting to, I'll have a lot of lineups that have like one of Butler, Bam, Loughy, Robinson, but as a whole, I don't expect any of these guys to be my highest owned players.
On the other side, I mean, Miami makes for an objectively bad matchup for opponents. I'm not saying you can't get there, especially on an abbreviated slate like this, but they're 7th in defense. They're 29th in pace, Adam. And Washington doesn't play at a particularly fast pace either. This game has a 206.5 total. However, you're still without Bradley Beal. Daniel Gafford is out for this game as well, as you just pointed out. Kyle Kuzma, 1.16 DraftKings point per minute guy without Beal this season. 20, I think it's like 27% usage rate. The rates are there. Spencer Dinwiddie's not getting a ton of ownership, but his price hasn't really come up much. They're also coming off of a game where they got absolutely annihilated. Absolutely. Didn't they blow? I thought they blew Phoenix out, right? Didn't they smoke them?
No, they got smoked by Phoenix.
That's right. Yeah, my fault. Yeah, they got smoked by.
I think they had like 48 points halfway through the third or something.
That's what I meant. Yeah, I got mixed up there. But I think it was like at one point, I'm pretty sure they were up by almost 40 points, the Suns.
Yeah.
So most of these guys' minutes were cut, not in half, but no late third quarter run, 0 run in the fourth quarter. So I'd expect them, assuming this game can stay competitive, they're 6-point dogs at home, to at least get back to seeing pretty steady amount of minutes here at reasonable price points. So the question is, how much do you factor matchup in here, given that we don't have Bradley Beal and Kuzma and Dinwiddie should at least be busy?
Yeah, basically it's like always, it's a combination of matchup, salary, and opportunities. I think the salaries look pretty appealing. I think the opportunities without Beal are very appealing. The issue is that Miami is not an appealing matchup at all. Washington's 100 implied total is, I think, just ahead of OKC for second lowest on the slate. And like you said, neither of these teams play at a particularly fast pace. So it's not even like you're getting a team where it's not like a Golden State where they are very good from an efficiency standpoint, but they're going to give you a ton of possessions. Miami's not going to give you a ton of possessions, and they're going to limit your efficiency. But when you look at the salaries and you think about it, at least in terms of upside, you still have Dinwiddie at 6,200. He should play 30 to 32 minutes. He has a 37.5% assist percentage without Beal on the floor this year. Usage rates at 24.5%. He can be bad. I mean, I think he had like 10 fantasy points or something against Phoenix, like just an absolutely awful game. But he also is going to get a ton of opportunities here. So at only 15% ownership or so, I'm interested in getting there. Same can be said for Kuzma, who has like a 27.5% usage rate over the last month. He's at about 26% this year without Beal on the floor. Montrezl Harrell is interesting as a center because, like I said before, you don't have quite as high an opportunity cost at center. And then you don't have Daniel Gafford tonight, which I don't think makes a huge difference, but because he hasn't really been in the rotation anyway when Bryant's been active recently. But Gafford did play 6 or 7 minutes in the second half last game. You know that's not going to happen now. So I think it's likely you get like 20 minutes from Bryant, 24 from Harrell, and then Rui gets like 4 minutes at the 5. But you could conceivably get 26 to 28 from Harrell as well if he's playing well. So at 4,700, even if you give him 24 minutes, he looks fine. If he does play a few more minutes, he's going to look even better. So all three of those guys are getting some ownership. I think they deserve it. KCP is kind of in that Duncan Robinson range where he's pulling a little bit of ownership. He's not someone you're going to be very excited about, but he is really cheap. So not the worst play.
We basically have, if you're looking at the boom bust tool today, we basically have Dinwiddie as a neutral option, just based on ownership and optimal lineup probability. Kyle Kuzma, we have as minus 9% leverage score. Who do you prefer over one another? Kuzma, Dinwiddie, do you have them similar to each other or what?
I have them similar. We have Kuzma, I believe. Yeah, we have Kuzma pulling a little bit more ownership than Dinwiddie, and Dinwiddie's cheaper. So given that, I think I probably get to Dinwiddie first. But if you just look like relative to their salaries, I think they're they're kind of the same play to me. They're risky, but they also, it wouldn't shock anyone if they end up going for 45, 50 fantasy points.
Anything else on Washington?
No, not really. Like Thomas Bryant's really cheap, but he's center only. Rui is also really cheap. He did play like 23 minutes last game. That is an interesting development just because, he has been working his way back from injury and he's been limited a bit. I still have a hard time expecting him to play more than like 22 minutes tonight, but that's at least something to keep an eye on. And if you wanted to roll the dice, if you're playing 150 lineups at 3,300, he makes at least a little bit of sense.
Also, NBA player rankings, totally free today. On top of that, we got NHL player projections free over at Awesemo.com. You don't need an account or anything. You can just check them out if you want to do so. All right, we got 2 down, 3 to go. We'll flip it over to Phoenix and Chicago. Before we do, though, Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, we're still doing this. I thought it would be over by now. It's not. So if you've still been dragging your feet, or maybe you're new to the channel, if that's the case, what's up? Hit that thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. But no, in all seriousness, we're still doing a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. If you sign up at Yahoo using the link in the description or the one that Jordan Klein is about to throw or already threw into chat. And it's not just like, all right, sign up, get a free month. This is everything on the site too. Ownership projections, player projections, top stack tool, boom bust tool, lineup builder. If you want to get the Fantasy Cruncher add-on as well, you can do that. All our tools built by Awesemo himself. But it's not just like sign up at this site that you never heard of and get a free month. Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports right now has phenomenal payouts. The pay structure is awesome. I think they got $1 million prize pool for the upcoming Super Bowl showdown slate. Just a lot of great stuff going on. On top of that, too, their management fees, called Rake elsewhere, are the lowest you're going to find. You'll find a lot of 0%, find negative management fees. I'm looking at a contest tonight for NBA where they pay out over a third of the field. So just a lot of reasons to play there. You get the 50K baller and just huge contests coming up for NFL to close out the season with the Rams and the Bengals. So check it out. You got to use the link though. Take advantage of that free month, everything on the site. There's no strings attached. We'll hit you up shortly after you do so because they got to send us your info. And we'll get you set up and you'll get you in our Discord and our office hours chat where the pros will answer your questions and help you with anything you need, all of that. So Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, check out the link, use that, get the free month, and they'll give you $10 in free credit as well when you sign up over there. So take advantage of it. I don't know how long it'll be around for, but we're still doing it. So if you haven't done so yet, it'd be crazy not to. All right.
So I wanted to clarify something that just came up in chat. Somebody said Rui played 23 minutes last game because they were getting destroyed by the Suns and got blowout run. That's absolutely right. The reason that I mentioned that I think it's a reason for optimism is that they ran Rui out there to play that many minutes. So physically he can do it. He just did it. And when you look at this team, there's no real reason that as time goes on, Rui's not going to get more minutes. So that's why I mentioned it. It's not that I think you look at last game and say, oh, Rui's going to play 24 minutes. It's that they did sort of stretch him out and get him, a couple minutes more than usual when they had the opportunity. So it does at least open the door. Basically he's not hard capped at like 19 or 20 minutes.
Right. No, I got what you're saying. All right. Phoenix and Chicago. Let's take a look at the Suns on the road here. 8-point favorites, 227.5 total. I know you hate when I ask you this question, but 8 points on the road. I know Chicago's playing their second of a back-to-back. Yesterday was an afternoon game, but still. Does that suggest we might not be seeing Zach LaVine today? Either way, didn't play yesterday. Might not play today with those back spasms.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not reading into the line, but
8 points seems a little,
Phoenix is also really, really, really good.
They're very good. There's no doubt about it. Very good.
I mean, but to be fair, when Chicago's healthy, they're not bad either. But Phoenix is extremely good. But yeah, I mean, I think that. To me, LaVine seems very legitimately questionable anyway. White has been the one, it seems like, that is like a game time decision every day. LaVine's the one where they're like, oh, he's questionable. And then 2 hours before the game, they're like, yeah, he's not playing. So he seems like if I had to guess here, maybe like LaVine is out, White is in kind of thing. But I have them both in for now. I don't really know another way to approach it unless we get news. But I would definitely agree that there's a very good chance LaVine's not playing tonight.
That's what I think too. If that's the case, I mean, Phoenix, very, very good like you said, extremely good basketball team. Chicago at full strength is good though, man.
Yeah.
I think
they're also, I mean, it's also, I mean, they've played a lot lately.
Yeah, and they played big minutes.
This is a 4-5 and a back-to-back.
I feel like they're kind of paper tigers, though, as a team. Is that wrong to say?
They're what?
You know what a paper tiger is?
No, but I think I'm going to find out.
Okay. Take a guess. Take it, Jordan. Do you know what a paper tiger is? And don't tell me like paper mache.
Yeah, the thing I made in kindergarten.
Yeah. Yeah, something that seems like intimidating, but isn't, right? It seems formidable, but isn't. I think they're good, but
are you talking about the Suns or the Bulls?
The Bulls.
Okay. I was going to say, I think the Suns are legitimately very good.
Yeah. I think the Bulls, I think that the makeup of that team is good. I just don't know if it's like finals contender.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm not saying they're not good at all. I don't know if they are, you know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah. So what was the question? I got distracted by Paper Tiger.
I didn't have one. I just figured I'd throw that out there. No,
Okay.
What I was going to say is DeMar DeRozan, 41 minutes in regulation yesterday, monster of a game. I mean, can we at least give this guy some props, given that he's one of the few players left in the league that cannot hit a 3-pointer and still can go out there and rip off 45 points.
I mean, he's been great this year. He was amazing. He was one of the like when the Bulls signed him, he was one of the guys that, you know, the Bulls kind of got a lot of heat. Like, you know, you're not going to, DeRozan's not going to win you anything, blah, blah, which like he's probably not, but he's been legitimately great this year.
Why is everyone saying paper lion? Is that, or
I
it's
have
just
no idea.
maybe that's another one too. The paper tiger is definitely a real thing. Bill Burr had a special called Paper Tiger, as a matter of fact. But yeah, no, he's been awesome, man. And his price point's beginning to get up there. But let's do this, Adam, make it a little bit easier. Let's talk about rates. Talk about rates with Zach LaVine off the floor for guys like Vooch and guys like DeRozan. Try and figure out whether or not they're worth it today in a tough matchup against Phoenix. And of course, Kobe White is also questionable, was out yesterday too.
Yeah, and so Hero's out. Jimmy Butler expected to play. Strus expected to play. So nothing.
That's what we thought. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Okay.
As far as Chicago goes, the way I see it is basically if LaVine's the really important piece, but if LaVine and White are in, you can still go to guys like Vooch and DeRozan. I mean, it's a 5-game slate. They still certainly can have big games, but they're priced at least somewhat now for LaVine to be out. The salaries have increased a bit. Vooch at 10-1 on DraftKings, DeRozan at 9,800. If LaVine's out, they're pretty close to correctly priced, especially given the difficult matchup, but there's still a massive ceiling for these guys. 808 minutes this year for DeRozan without LaVine on the floor, 1.32 DraftKings points per minute, 36.4% usage rate, 26% assist percentage. Vooch is at 1.29 DraftKings points per minute, 27% usage rate, 19.5% assist percentage. So even if they're at a price point where you don't have a huge margin for error anymore, you can still just get the 55, 60 DraftKings point game from these guys relatively easily and not care what their salary was. Similarly, you have Dosunmu, who is up to 6,200 on DraftKings. You're talking about like a 13.5% usage guy, but over the last month, he's got about a 24% assist percentage, and he's playing 37 or 38 minutes in competitive games. So I hate going to guys like this at mid-range salaries where you're not expecting them to really score the ball all that much, but he has been productive. The minutes are there, the assist opportunities are there. So as long as LaVine and White are out, I think Dosunmu is okay. I would still like get to him after I would get to DeRozan and Vooch. Same can be said for guys like Javonte Green and Troy Brown. At least one of them is likely to play a lot of minutes. Green is typically getting into the mid-30s now. Brown played a lot a couple of games ago, then only played like 22 minutes yesterday with Matt Thomas playing more. But there are still opportunities for those guys. So given the matchup and given the increase in salaries, I think if LaVine and White are out, there's a little bit less margin for error on the Bulls than there has been in recent games, but there's still some of the highest upside guys on the slate.
Shan, I'm not saying that DeRozan can't hit threes. I'm saying he's objectively a type of player, an archetype of player that is not prominent in the league anymore in terms of being good. I mean, Jimmy Butler has hit game-winning threes, and Jimmy Butler is not a guy that shoots a lot of threes. I mean, how many other guys are in the league right now, like a DeRozan, Adam, that can do what he can do and score at will in many games without being a prolific or even a good three-point shooter?
Yeah, there's not many.
Are there any others that can? I'm sure there's maybe one or two. Butler's kind of like that, but he's not the same type of lethal scorer.
Yeah, I was gonna say Butler was kind of like the next guy you think of when somebody says that, I think.
I don't know if they're who. Yeah, but he's not as much of like a mid-range guy.
Yeah, Giannis is just scoring at the rim.
Yeah, he's. I mean, Westbrook, but Westbrook's more.
Westbrook's not scoring anywhere these days.
Exactly. My God, well, it's been bad.
On a complete side note, there is a rumor today about eventually him ending up back on the Wizards, which I am completely in favor of.
You want that?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, okay, so given the rumor was basically that Wall goes to the Lakers, Russ goes to Houston, Houston buys him out, he signs with the Wizards. Given that, where the Wizards aren't like giving anything up for him, I just think that he makes the Wizards better. Like he still plays hard. They need that. They were good with him last year. The pieces that or at least some of the pieces they have played well with him last year, and they are. At the very least, they'd be more entertaining to watch. And right now, they're an absolute shit show. So, as long as they're not giving anything up, bring Russ back for sure.
All right. Do you think Ben and Harden deal gets done?
I don't know what to make of that. All I don't understand is how Harden doesn't have the label yet that like Jimmy Butler had or Kyrie has or whatever. Like, the dude is about to quit is trying to quit on his second team in like 2 years.
Yeah. It's amazing. All right. So I think it happens. I really do. I think it happens. I think they probably include Seth Curry too. I don't know. That's what they're saying, but I think it happens.
Is Josh saying Westbrook doesn't play hard? That's like the one thing he does.
Engleman saying that?
Yeah.
He just hates the man.
Yeah, I know.
He just hates
but yeah, I mean, for me, basically, if the Washington thing is just like they're not a contender either way, but at least they'll lose games 140 to 120 instead of 100 to 80.
Right. He said yes. That is what he's saying. All right. I get what Josh is saying, like, but. I don't know, I think there's a lot of players that play less hard than Westbrook. Victor had sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, Westbrook, it's kind of like the one thing he does.
Dosunmu or
he does participate in defense. He just goes to the wrong place and does the wrong thing.
Right. He's just, everything is frantic. There's no real sense to anything that he does, right? It's kind of the problem.
Like the game-winning basket they gave up the other day. Like Russ tried to double team. He made the effort. He just like completely missed the guy by 3 feet.
All right, Dosunmu or Dinwiddie is the last man in. We had a super chat here.
Dinwiddie. I just think the ceiling's higher. You're getting a higher assist percentage from Dinwiddie. You're getting a higher usage rate from Dinwiddie. The matchup sucks for both of them. It's better for Chicago just because Phoenix plays faster. But if you're talking about like, who's more likely to win you a tournament, I think it's Dinwiddie.
Did you, that 3-point attempt from Westbrook though, in a game that he actually brought them back into it by making threes, was one of the most like ego shots you could ever take in your life. You know what I'm talking about? Saw it. From a week ago or so, Jordan shaking his head. Jordan, you saw that, right? It was just a horrible, horrible shot. And everybody knew it straight out of his hands, but he'd been making them. So Westbrook's going to do his thing. Anything else for Chicago you want to hit on?
No.
Chicago. Anything else?
No.
Okay. I mean, now I'm just seeing what you're concocting over there to type into chat because clearly
the thing that always makes it go crazy. LeBron
is better than MJ.
Somebody said to take Josh's opinion on Westbrook with a grain of salt because he thinks LeBron is better than MJ. And I was just clarifying that I am completely with Josh there.
I don't think either of them are the best ever. I
Big
put
Wilt Chamberlain
Charles
guy.
Barkley.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Do you think it's wrong that Wilt gets mentioned in the same sentence as those guys when he was playing against like rec league players for a while?
Yeah, I think it's wrong for the same reason that I think the people that say MJ is better at basketball than LeBron are wrong.
Ooh, okay. All right. So what if MJ was in his prime right now playing against LeBron?
LeBron's bigger, faster, stronger. Like MJ would be bigger, faster, and stronger now than he was then. Like his game would be totally different. I like if you want to have the conversation, like if they both played right now, who would be better? I have no idea because that's like impossible to have. But if you're just saying like peak MJ in the 90s versus peak LeBron in his career, like LeBron's just better because he's more advanced, basically. The same reason that like everything improves with technology.
Adam had his finger on the nuclear button for chat.
Yeah, the same thing happens
and
every
pressed
time.
it. Yeah, and pressed it with glee. All right. Let's talk about Golden State here. You got the Warriors going up against OKC. Man, just a dreadful Oklahoma City team. They're 12-point favorites against the Thunder, 210 total. Let's hash this one out. Still waiting on Otto Porter, by the way, and I'm checking to see if we've got any news coming in. Nope, we're good for now. So how much Curry do you want to get to?
I think a lot, just because kind of like we said at the top, there's not the opportunity cost that you typically have. When you think about opportunity costs for getting to Steph tonight, it's more so like you can get Fred VanVleet for $2K less. You can get LaMelo for 1,000 less or 1,200 less, whatever it is. There's good high upside guards that you can get for less, but you don't have anyone. You don't have a Giannis, a Jokic, a Harden, whatever, an Irving without Harden or anything like that. So it's kind of the unusual slate where at least right now, Curry projects as the highest scorer on the slate. He's in a pretty good spot against OKC. If Lou Dort is out, again, I don't care that much about individual defense, but Dort being out certainly wouldn't be a negative for Curry. I think he looks good. So, you can still make some very good lineups without getting up to that price tier. And also, if Levine sits, then guys like Vooch and DeRozan end up also projecting similarly to Curry. But as it stands right now, I think I get to a good amount just because he is the top projected guy on the slate.
And by the way, almost to 500 likes here. Appreciate it. I wouldn't ask you if it didn't actually help us here on the channel. Take a timeout from the apoplectic YouTube rants and calling Adam an idiot because he wasn't around to watch Michael Jordan. That's a lot of the thing. But no, for real, hit that thumbs up, get us to 500. And then you can go back to it. I thoroughly enjoy this. I mean, nothing makes me happier than seeing chat just fly with, hey, moron.
I wish I'd stuck around the other day. I think we were wrapping up the deeper dive. But I closed out the show by pointing out that DeMar DeRozan is probably better at basketball than Michael Jordan was. And oh
yeah, that was something.
I left that for Live Before Lock though.
Yeah, that got more downvotes than we've ever seen in a video. But guess what? We didn't see them because YouTube is catering to the soft crowd these days, saying, take it away. They can't handle it anymore. We can. Bring it back. I want to see what's happening. Anyway, let me get back on track here. We got 2 games to go. We're fine. We still got 13 minutes. But do you want to get to some Wiggins here, some Thompson here? A little bit of Kevon Looney sprinkled in. Focus for me for a second. Then you go right back to what you got to do. What are we doing with the non-Steph Currys for the Warriors today? Just a trash Oklahoma City team they're facing.
Yeah, and so we do have injury news that does at least somewhat matter here. Otto Porter Jr. is questionable. Andre Iguodala is questionable. For right now, I'm assuming Porter plays and Iggy doesn't. That's not really based on a whole lot other than me guessing. But if that ends up being the case, and Porter starts, which again is not a guarantee. They could stick with Moody. I assume they would go back to Porter. If we assume Porter is in and starting, he looks okay at 5,200. But one way or the other, the guys that are going to look like the clear top options are Curry, Wiggins, Thompson. You know what you're getting from Curry and Wiggins. Thompson should give you 25, 26 minutes. He has about a 28% usage rate so far this year. So all of those guys look pretty good here. I do think that they're pretty close to correctly priced, but they do have upside. Kevon Looney likely to give you 24, 25 minutes at 5,100. He could play more with Bielitsa out, but we haven't really seen that recently. His playing time has still been kept in check. You've just gotten more minutes for Toscano Anderson without Bielitsa, a little bit more for Kuminga, who played like 24 minutes last game. So I think basically whoever is starting for Golden State is viable. If Moody is starting at 3,200, viable is kind of a stretch, but 3,200 is still really cheap for someone that probably would be playing like 24 minutes if Porter and Iggy are out. But where I think the news really matters is if Porter and or Iguodala are in, it becomes very difficult, I think, to even take dart throws at guys like Kuminga or Gary Payton or Moody or whoever, like any of these cheap guys for Golden State. If they're out though, if both Porter and Iguodala are out, then you're probably looking at mid-20s in minutes from Moody at 3,200. You're potentially getting 20 plus from Kuminga at 4,600. Gary Payton only played like 12 minutes last game, but he's 3,400. So if he somehow for some reason got to 18 minutes here, he could look good. So if we assume at least one of those guys are in, I'm basically just sticking to the starters. If both of Porter and Iguodala are out, then I think you can at least roll the dice on some of these backups.
Alex Baker in chat, just adding fuel. Our boy, awesome. Michael Jordan never won me a GPP. I'm going with DeRozan. Love it. Super chat from Darko. Thanks, man. If you had a question, feel free to throw it in there. We had another super chat from John Cooper. LeBron is the better ball player, but MJ is the better story. That's why I consider MJ the GOAT. MJ wasn't supposed to win 6 rings. LeBron was.
I don't disagree with that. So, someone kind of framed it that way to me on Twitter one time, and I agreed. Like, LeBron being the best, but Jordan being the greatest, I can get on board with that. Like, what Jordan did in his
semantics, my friend.
What Jordan did in his era is more impressive, probably, than what LeBron has done, or at least, like, I don't have any issue if you think that. If you think that Jordan was literally just better at basketball in 1995 than LeBron is in 2015, I think you're probably insane.
You want to know what the real answer is? Who gives a shit? They were both phenomenal.
Yeah, also very fair.
I get the argument, but there's no right answer. Like, everyone's going to say, oh, but there isn't. There's no real way, unless you're using rings, right, to compare. And that's where everyone resorts to with MJ. But really, it's objective because they played it's subjective because they played in two different eras. You're never really going to have an answer, right?
The Brady comp I think is very fair. I don't think Brady's the most talented quarterback ever. I think he's the best quarterback, or not. I don't think he's the best quarterback in terms of like talent. I think he's the greatest quarterback that's ever played.
Yeah, but what's talent if it doesn't translate to being the best?
Sure, but I think like there are quarterbacks that were, like, I don't know, that still won and were more talented than Brady. I do think, though, that Brady has a better argument for the best than Jordan because at least he's played in the most recent era.
Gotcha. All right, OKC, again, a mess of a basketball team. You've got a bunch of guys out again, right? So you have SGA is going to be out for a while. We already know that, but Lou Dort's questionable. Aaron Wiggins is out. Muscala's out. Isaiah Roby's out. So you're missing a couple of bigs here. As on top of that, Adam, it looks like Baisley's getting some ownership here. How do we want to approach the front court for OKC tonight? I think it's an important spot.
Yeah, this is another one where Dort is questionable. It does matter because if he's out, you're opening up a lot of playing time when we already know that Muscala's out, Roby's out, the front court's shorthanded. They sent Pokusevski back to the G League. Aaron Wiggins is still out. So if we assume Dort is in, then starting in the front court, I think Diakite at 3,700 is still a good value. He did lose his power forward eligibility on DraftKings. That's not ideal, but still a good value center option that is going to open up, your DeRozan, Curry, Van Vliet type plays for you. Darius Baisley likely to start again, should play probably mid-30s. He's up to 5,400 on DraftKings. Still looks pretty good. He's I would say, in the Gordon Hayward, Kelly Oubre range. Right now we have Baisley projected for 22% ownership, so he's getting about the same ownership as well. I think that between now and lock, if you do start to get some separation between like Hayward, Oubre, and Baisley, I would just be wanting to play like the lowest owned guy of that group a little bit more. So both of the starting front court guys I think are pretty decent values. Giddey looks fine. Trey Mann looks okay. If Dort is in, I don't mind getting to Dort. He probably plays 33, 34 minutes. He's an inefficient shooter, but he does have a 25.5% usage rate without Gilgeous-Alexander this year, so you get a nice ceiling there. If he's out, though, you're looking at more minutes for Ty Jerome. You should get more minutes for Kenrich Williams. He only played like 16 or 17 minutes last game, but Pogoshevsky played into the mid-20s. Taking out Pogoshevsky makes it likely that you're getting mid-20s from Kenrich Williams. So I think both him and Jerome start to look better if Dort sits. And if Dort sits, you also could take a shot at a 3K Teo Maledon. Keep your expectations in check, but I think he at least gets the opportunities if Dort's out.
If Dort's out, this is important. How many are you willing to play from OKC? I see so often where people just load up on, like, if there's good value for a team. Sometimes when it's a really bad team, it just doesn't work, especially against a good defense like Golden State, albeit without Draymond Green.
Yeah, I mean, your question is about Golden State's defense?
No, not even close. I'm saying when you have a really bad team like OKC, let's say you're without Dort, to how many are you willing to play from the same team? Because I know that the value looks abundant sometimes, but I think we also have to consider that this is a really bad basketball team as well. So if you're playing a ton of guys from this team, we have to at least keep that in mind.
Yeah, I mean, they only have a 99 implied total as well. And the salaries have come up. I think that's worth noting because, like, last game against Sacramento, it was the same sort of thing where, I mean, the matchup was obviously better, but you're still talking about a really bad team. But I didn't mind getting to a bunch of them because they were just really, really cheap. Now it's more so like they're a little bit underpriced, more so than the whole team being like $1,000 too cheap. I'm not treating them any differently than the other teams. I'll cap them at 3. And then if I have 3 of them, probably want somebody from Golden State because that would suggest that they're hanging in the game if 3 of their guys are doing really well.
All right. Hey, by the way, coming up next, it is the Live Before Lock show, taking you all the way up to 7. You got a post-lock show as well. Your boy Josh Engleman, who started all of this shit, and Greg Ehrenberg. So they'll be joining us right after this. We got one more game to go. But before we do that, shout out to all of our winners getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. Some familiar names here and some new ones. If you want to get involved, just go to awesemo.com/avatar. Use that. Download it for Yahoo, DraftKings, FanDuel, wherever it is that you play. Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more and tweet us at Awesemo HOF. Not only do you get inducted here, do we shout you out on all of our biggest shows, but you'll also get a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum, $90 value. It's a win-win across the board. Bro. This is one of our guys. So I read Spud Kelly's article on Awesemo.com about past Pro Bowl slates, and Bob's your uncle. Great. Thanks for a great article, Nolan. Nolan told me there was an edge there. I didn't buy it, but I mean, a 50K with the Vegas special. That's amazing, dude. That is amazing. First place on a that was the Pro Bowl, right? Yeah. Amazing. Good stuff, bro. Emilio, 50K. Boom. Thank you. Awesemo. Hungry for more. We got Chuck, rejoined Awesemo 10 days ago. We're already back to shipping. Shout out to yesterday's show, guys. Good stuff. That's a lot of wins there in one day. $400 for who's next. I'm subbing after doing a test run on your tools. Hey, man, come join us. Or go to awesemo.com/join. Check out everything we got. 2 more here. Brian Train, what's up, man? I saw him in chat earlier. 3rd place. Got one that qualifies, best tools in the industry. Well, then you got a free month on top of that as well, bro. And then Screaming Eagle, 2nd place in the go-kart. I like that. Tied for 2nd in the NASCAR quarter. Congrats to everyone. Again, awesemo.com/avatar. Welcome to the Hall of Fame. And if you've been here before, welcome back. Awesemo.com/avatar. Get in on it. Join the team. Get a free month. All right, let's do this, Adam. Make it happen with the final game of the slate before we flip the page to Live Before Lock. New York Knicks, Utah. No Kemba Walker today. No Rudy Gobert on the other side. What are we doing with the 8-point dogs on the road Knicks today, starting with Randall?
Yeah, so I mean, Randall, I think, looks like the most appealing option. Still not super appealing. Just probably going to play 36, 37 minutes if the game's competitive. Only a 105 team total for the Knicks, but you do get a ceiling from Randall. I don't have any issues getting there, but doesn't really look like a priority for me. Same can be said for RJ Barrett. At least when he plays well, you're still getting a lot of minutes from him. He's a mid to upper 20s usage rate guy coming off of a game where he just played 43 minutes in regulation. So he looks fine at 7K. Again, not a priority, but looks decent. Kemba being out does make me more willing to take some shots at the other guys on New York. When we did the show this morning, I had said that I thought it was really difficult to really want to do anything with the backcourt. But taking out Kemba, I'm assuming Alec Burks is going to start. Doesn't have to, but my guess is that he does. And if he does, you're probably talking about around 30 minutes for him. He's not the best point per minute guy, but 4,800 on DraftKings, 5,100 on FanDuel with multi-position eligibility as well. Just makes him look like a decent value. But it also opens the door for more guys where you're not super comfortable with it, but it makes it a little bit more likely that one of Quickly or Quentin Grimes gets enough minutes to be useful here. Quickly, a couple of games ago, played like mid-20s. Last game, he played 5 minutes. I think now it's likely you get him around 20 minutes, but if he's playing well, he could play more. Grimes is likely to also play around 20 minutes, but again, if he's playing well, he could play more. You could see him potentially out there if he's doing a good job defending Donovan Mitchell, for example. You could see him just get more minutes and be on the floor a little bit more. So either one of those guys, I wouldn't play them together. I'm not playing a lot of them in general, but there is at least a path now with Kemba out to where they look a little bit better. And then Mitchell Robinson is just, another 5K center that has a ceiling. He's been playing really well recently. Still doesn't look like a priority, but isn't a bad play.
Okay. Super chat from Goody. Timely as always, my friend. Thank you for the etiquette there. Can we go to Mitchell as a pay-up? I'm thinking 26 minutes tonight. Last game, he only had 22 and still paid his salary. DraftKings, GPP. Well, two things. One, that was a monster blowout in that game. He had no reason to continue playing. He played a couple minutes into the fourth, but I haven't played more than 26 minutes today. I know he returned from a concussion, so maybe he doesn't get his full allotment of minutes, but I think 26 would be a conservative estimate on minutes.
Yeah, I'm definitely going higher than 26. I think it's fair to point out that his rotations last game were not particularly appealing. He was playing basically like 6-minute stints, but it was a concussion. Mike
Conley did too for the most part, though.
Yeah, it was kind of just a weird game. I don't remember if they were just winning the entire game or not. Like if it was one of those
They were. So they went up early. There was never a point that they didn't lead. The entire fourth quarter, second half was like 30 plus points almost.
Yeah. So, it could have just been, they were intentionally shortening the rotations a little bit anyway. I think, I'd go at least 30 on Mitchell's minutes projection here, if not a little bit higher. It wasn't a lower body injury. He did acknowledge that he was actually pretty messed up by the concussion, but I don't anticipate him being like significantly limited or anything. And the second part of that question is yes, $8,400 for Mitchell. You're basically getting him at like $1,000 or so less than he is normally priced, and it's not a particularly good matchup. But you're getting just a really good player at $8,400. You also potentially don't have Jordan Clarkson, which for whatever minutes they would normally share the floor together means more usage for Mitchell.
B. Brown with the super chat. Adam, I'm going to need you to watch every Bulls game from 85 to 97 stat.
Why would I want to watch minor league basketball?
He just keeps twisting the knife. Oh, God, it's good. Anyway, I don't know. You saw The Last Dance. That's all you need, right? And Jason Williams is better than LeBron is better than MJ. Clearly a joke, but Jason Williams was awesome, dude. Anyway, Adam, any other thoughts on Utah before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I think the rest of Utah, for the most part, is sort of like last guy in type pieces. If you get to a little bit of Conley, Bogdanovich. Actually, so Bogdanovich on DraftKings, I think is really expensive and difficult to get to. On FanDuel, Bogdanovich is really cheap and a very good play. But one thing I did want to mention, and I actually wanted to see where we have him. Yeah, so right now we still have a very low ownership projection on Hassan Whiteside. I really like him in tournaments because I think this can go one of two ways. One, Whiteside comes off the bench like he did last game, plays 24 minutes or so. If that happens at 6K, you don't really want him. Like you're not going to be too excited about that, but he could still get there potentially. But I think there's also a decent chance that he moves back into the starting lineup. This is his second game back now, and we know when he has started this year, he's given you 30 to 32 minutes. We're not going to have a Utah starting lineup before the slate locks, most likely. So I think it's a situation where if we get news later that Whiteside's starting, he's just naturally going to be lower owned than he otherwise would. I think there's kind of more reward to assuming Whiteside starts and playing a good amount of him, and then just kind of living with the results if he doesn't start, than assuming that he's only playing 24 minutes and then potentially missing out on what is like a slate breaking play on a 5-game slate.
All right. Hey, good to have you back, man.
Yeah, good to be back. Nice to talk basketball again.
Tell you, go get some Sudafed. Feel a lot better. You're just going to be ripping and roaring. You're going to be buying meth in no time. So, hey, also 3,000 people watching. Appreciate you guys as always. I know it gets heated in chat, but quite frankly, who cares? I mean, come on. It affects your life zero, whether you're right or wrong about LeBron and MJ. But it does affect my life that you hit that thumbs up. I guess it doesn't. I don't know. Get us to 700. I bet there's an astronomical amount of downvotes just with your name on it too today. So that's okay. We can live with it. We'll blame it on Jordan. I'm kidding. Jordan Klein, appreciate you as always, man. We'll talk to you guys soon. Josh and Greg coming up next. And then stick around after the show if you're not doing anything. 30-minute post-game, post-lock show, sponsored by Yahoo Daily Fantasy, breaking down ownership, everything on Yahoo as well. Hang with those guys. We'll have some fun. Talk to you soon. Peace.
And we are live. Welcome to Live Before Lock, the show where we point out that Michael Jordan quit twice because the pressure was too tough, while LeBron just went to 10 straight finals. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Greg Ehrenberg. We are brought to you by Yahoo Fantasy Sports, and we have a 5-game NBA slate to break down all the way up until 7, and then for 30 minutes more. So if you haven't hit the like button yet, please do so now. We've got 700 plus likes. I think 1,000 is in the cards. We've got about 3,000 people in here right now. You cannot beat it. Greg, how are you?
Yeah, and I mean, you also can't forget that, who were Michael Jordan's contemporaries. It was a pedophile, it was some janitors, and people that sort of probably like Karl Malone, actual pedophile. But the other people also he played against, it was janitors, painters. These weren't full-time basketball players.
No, accountants. They were smoking cigarettes at halftime and stuff, probably drinking too. Yeah. What are we talking about here? What are we talking about?
Basketball.
By the way, just for the record, chat, I'm not even trolling you. That's a true opinion. He quit twice. Couldn't stick it. Couldn't handle it.
It wasn't any good at baseball either.
No, not at all. LeBron had social media for 10 years. Champion, finals after finals after finals after finals. Dominant. I love it. Fun slate tonight.
Yeah, and it's very uncharacteristic. I'm sitting here when the 5:30 injury report comes out, and we didn't have the Jimmy Butler news. I'm thinking, we're going to get that Jimmy Butler news right at 5:59 before you and I start. But then it came out at it was kind of an odd time. It came out at 5:40. But either way, enough time to update. And I think we've gotten the pertinent news that we're going to need heading into lock. We've still got Kobe White, Zach LaVine. They're both questionable, but that's not a 7 p.m. game. So pretty easy going, I think, for us in this one.
Absolutely. I hope that we are going to have a relatively easy time, but I'm a little nervous that we get Zach LaVine news at 6:57. And not that it's going to matter all that much, but I do expect to have a bit of him. And I'm hoping that I'm just right and I end up with a bunch of him and then ownership is just low. But I guess we'll see. It's not MJ disrespect. I think he's really, really, really good and the second best player I've ever seen. It's not like I think he's just some scrub.
Yeah, and all right, so I've talked about this before, and it's a 5-game slate, guys. Don't get your panties in a bunch. We're gonna hit on all of the relevant top plays on the slate and talking points, but also evolution, right?
Right.
So whoever the best player is of our lifetime is going to be whoever the best player in the league is when we're all about to die, most likely, just based on how evolution works, because the advances in medical science, LeBron James spends $1.5 million per year on his body. That's the reason he's been able to play this long into his career. Now, what kind of other supplements is he putting into his body that, may or may not be on the up and up when he's paying $1.5 million for? I don't know. I have some suspicions. But that aside, the advances that we have in just all science, health and wellness, all of that, in addition to just, what are the best shots to take on a basketball court and all kinds of advanced data information that weren't available 15, 20 years ago. Those are massive advantages that also it's hard to quantify. Meaning if Michael Jordan played in this era, would he be a good 3-point shooter? Perhaps. But there's no way to know because he didn't do it in his time. And he wasn't a good 3-point shooter because it wasn't something people worked on or did. But it's kind of evolution, how things grow. People are going to be better at something 20 years from now they are now. It's just kind of the reality of it.
Look at the 100-meter dash. Look at, swimming. Look at any other Olympic events that are timed trials that continue to go down and down and down. It's because we keep getting bigger, faster, stronger. It's not an indictment on Michael Jordan.
Yeah, no, it's not at all. And the other thing too is when we're talking about the longevity of players, I don't think these are, to an extent, they're outliers. Tom Brady, there aren't going to be other quarterbacks to play until 44. There aren't going to be MVP caliber players that are playing in their late 30s like LeBron is. But at the same time, too, we've got players like Cam Akers in football, tears his Achilles, comes back in the same season. There was an Olympic gold medalist in gymnastics who tore his Achilles and then won the gold medal 3 months later. So there's massive strides that we're making in these areas that are just going to make athletes better over time.
Absolutely. We are in agreement. I hate the rings argument. That's the one that I think is the most garbage out of all of it.
Team,
if you want to say that it's
not individual.
Yeah, if you want to say that it's Jordan because of rings, then your answer has to be Bill Russell. It can't be, you can't go Jordan over Russell if your argument is rings. It's just impossible.
Which also, by the way, because I see people bringing up, I saw somebody make a funny DFS point that, our DFS analysts getting bigger, faster, stronger now than they were a few years ago. No, but if you knew the information you had about even if you're not a profitable player right now, if you had access to the same information in DFS now that you did 5 years ago, you would be just a multi-millionaire crushing every single night. Because there's a lot of stuff that we're doing now that's just kind of common knowledge that we had no clue about a few years ago.
I have so many screenshots of old NFL contests where no one stacked like quarterbacks and wide receivers. It was just wasn't happening. We're talking like 2014, 8 years ago or whatever. It's night and day. It's night and day. It's insane. It's truly insane. Our Discord. I doubt Josh watched many Jordan games. Let's be honest. I'm 37 years old. That dude was everything to me growing up. Everything. Poster on the wall, all of that good stuff. I wanted to watch a Michael Jordan game more than I wanted to watch any other sporting event at all, across all of it. So yeah, I watched plenty.
Yeah, and people think I'm 16, but I also watched Michael Jordan as a child.
I would get a new, through each one of those, like they'd win the championship, we'd go on vacation. I would get an airbrushed shirt at the Jersey Shore of like the entire team with like trophies on it. And then I'd get the back-to-back. I had the three-peat shirt. I had it all twice. once the first time and once the second time. And I'll say this much too. When it transitioned and everybody started saying that it was Kobe, like I didn't think that it was ever Kobe. I continued to maintain it was Jordan. I just think it's LeBron. Like I didn't jump to the next flavor the next time. I skipped a generation.
Yeah, and once again, whoever the best player in the league is 15 years from now is going to be better than LeBron James also. Yeah. It's just how evolution works.
Absolutely. I have no doubt about that. Like I don't expect LeBron to be my answer in 2042.
Nope.
What do we want to talk about here?
Either, but that's besides the point.
I'm working on it. That's for sure. All right. Let's talk guards. We're 15 minutes in. It seems like the perfect time to start doing that. The chat is it's on fire. I can't track it. Like I can't even, by the time I try to read a message, it's already gone. So what up, chat? Thanks for being here. Hit that like button.
One quick, we did get a super chat from CG that we could bring up before we officially change subjects. MJ killed himself, by the way. MJ killed himself to beat the Pistons, whereas LeBron would have joined them. The metrics can't measure his greatness versus LeBron. That is a funny aside. And then Uzi Azazov, you guys make no sense. His prime is higher vert than Levi. I don't even know this.
What he's saying is that he's got a higher vertical than Zach LaVine, bigger hands than Kawhi, more athletic than Russ in his prime. I have no idea why any of that shit matters.
No, neither do I. Nor do I even know if it's accurate.
Yeah. I look at someone like Giannis and it's just like, I think he checks all of those boxes probably too. I mean, I assume Giannis can grab the top of the backboard.
Yeah. Like, what are we doing? Are we going to start going to locker rooms, looking at these guys shower? That's how we measure greatness around here from now on.
Bigger in the pants.
Yeah.
Zach
Aaron
LaVine
Baines, greatest of all time.
Zach LaVine in Kobe White game time decision.
All right. That's useful information. I didn't know if we were going to get the LaVine info in a reasonable amount of time. So Zach LaVine, very reasonably priced, $7,500 over on FanDuel. And I'm curious if he's going to pick up ownership now because he was not at all before and he was looking pretty appealing.
I know. I had 45% of him because he was 6% owned. Now I would make that adjustment so I didn't have to. But I'm a big fan of LaVine today on FanDuel because 7,700 is an incredible. Is it 7,500 today? 7,500 is an exceptionally stupid price tag.
Yeah, and people weren't playing him, so that'll be big when we get the next ownership update to see where he falls. And that was one of my favorite tournament plays of the day.
Yeah, you and me both. I was hoping that he was going to be in. Let's just talk through some of the guards. We've got, at least from a FanDuel stance, or actually, let me just look at the ownership for both sides of it here. Devin Booker, the highest owned guy on DraftKings, obviously a guard. Terry Rozier, highest owned guy on FanDuel. Devin Booker, not too far behind. Let's just talk Devin Booker here. Is he the best play of the day today?
Not to me, he's not. It doesn't mean that he's not somebody who's my player pool. He certainly is, but the ownership seems very aggressive to me, where he's at 36% on FanDuel right now. On DK, like you said, the most roster player at 30%. we don't have that many super obvious value plays on this like we've had on other ones.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I project Devin Booker decently, but I'm a little confused as to why everybody's getting to him at quite this extent. Like, I think there's really good pivots to be had here. The one that stands out to me the most is Donovan Mitchell.
So I was a little bit heavier on Donovan Mitchell earlier today. And by the way, I'm light on Booker. I'm neutral on Donovan Mitchell, 8,500 on FanDuel, 8,400 on DraftKings, about 20% owned across both. That is where I am on FanDuel for right now. Now, this is going to adjust a little bit. I'm going to end up moving a bunch of ownership around. Once Levine's ownership goes up, his is going to come down for me. Surprise, surprise. It's rare for me. Jimmy Butler is the guy that I'm sort of like most over the field on, at least on FanDuel for right now. And that is not something that happens for me all that frequently.
So something that's funny is I've been shitting on Jimmy Butler a lot because that seems to get people really upset, which I think is funny. But at the same time, I've also been playing him a lot. So I've always said that, like, oh, look how soft he is. He can't play through toe injuries. But then at the same time, I run my lines like, oh, look, I'm getting to a lot of Jimmy Butler. He's one of my favorite tournament plays. But I also think, much like Zach LaVine, I think he's going to see a pretty big uptick in ownership because we have not seen updated ownership since LaVine and Jimmy Butler both got rolled in. So I think both of them are going to see their ownership. LaVine in particular on FanDuel, he's way different looking on FanDuel and DK because there's a $2,000 price gap between them on the two different sites. But Jimmy Butler, I expect, is going to be probably somewhere in the 20% range. I think he's going to take a little bit of ownership away from Mitchell, a little bit of ownership away from Devin Booker. And then Zach LaVine, I expect to become fairly popular on FanDuel as well.
I didn't think about the fact that we didn't have an update in terms of Butler just because it felt like that had happened a while ago. But that's a really good point and will definitely dictate what I've got going on. So who else stands out to you at the guard spot today?
Yeah, so the Donovan Mitchell one, just because I kind of mentioned it before and I want to talk about it a little bit more. He came back last game from concussion and his minutes at first glance look limited because he only played 22, and they were light on his minutes in the first half. But at the same time, too, the Jazz absolutely dismantled the Nets, and there was just no need to play Donovan Mitchell coming back from a concussion, big minutes in that game. I don't think there's any reason to believe, though, that he won't be well over 30 minutes in this game, and as long as this isn't a blowout against the Knicks, I just think we have a Donovan Mitchell that's underpriced and is probably playing about close to full minutes on a smaller slate, and just isn't picking up an appropriate amount of ownership, in my opinion. And I do think he makes for a really good pivot off of Devin Booker if Devin Booker is going to hold this much ownership.
Yeah, I assume my amount of Mitchell goes up when my amount of LaVine comes down a bit. Maybe the similar story for Butler, because I am getting to basically a neutral amount of Mitchell, and that is only going to go up when those other guys pull some additional ownership. Guys that I'm getting to today. I'm getting to a ton of Spencer Dinwiddie at 5,900. I'm legitimately surprised that he's 16% owned. I don't know if that's just people are disgusted by Spencer Dinwiddie, but he's just not that guy when Bradley Beal's off. I mean, we're talking about a 26% usage rate, a 38% assist rate. He's like close to 1.1 fantasy point per minute guy. It's not the best matchup in the world against Miami. I just don't see how he should be 16% owned given his underlying stats when Bradley Beal is not in the game.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, there's a couple of things here. First, the total is really low for this game. It's 206.5. So I think that's impacting a lot of people's projections. Also, though, I think people are being influenced based on the recent games that Spencer Dinwiddie's had. And here's something else. Don't be too influenced by recent blowouts because there's been a lot of blowouts that we've seen recently. And this is something that's also impacted Spencer Dinwiddie. Last game, he only plays 23 minutes. And didn't do anything from a fantasy standpoint. We've seen a couple of bad fantasy games out of him since Bradley Beal got hurt. But also, keep some of these matchups in mind. On the road in Milwaukee, they get blown out in that spot. Last game is against Phoenix. They get blown out in that spot. This is also a difficult matchup for him. But if the Wizards are going to be competitive, it's probably because Spencer Dinwiddie plays well. So I'm with you. I think he's also a pretty solid contrarian option.
All right. That makes me feel pretty good. I like it. Dinwiddie also doesn't want to be there, and they're looking to trade him. Very true. Very true. He's not playing this bad for no reason. That's the thing, though. He's not playing bad without Bradley Beal. We want to talk about how bad he's been when Bradley Beal's on the floor. I'm all for that conversation. Bradley Beal's not going to be in uniform tonight.
That's another big one. We just got Lou Dort is playing. That's way bigger news on today's slate than it should have been. We don't have to deal with just oodles of terrible Thunder value again.
Well, that's exciting because I have him in and now I don't have to do anything different. Yeah. How do you feel about Dort? Let's just talk about him since he's the news for right now.
Yeah. So with Lou Dort in, but we were just talking about teams getting blown out due to tough matchups. So the Oklahoma City Thunder are playing the Golden State Warriors tonight in a game that certainly has a pretty good chance of being one-sided. Also, OKC could really struggle to score in this spot. I have not played a whole bunch of Lou Dort this year. I also had Lou Dort in already, and I have him in like 3% of my lineups.
Okay.
Just not somebody who's massively appealing to me.
I got him in 13% right now. We had him projected for 3% ownership. When that inevitably goes to like 7 or whatever he ends up at for not being questionable, I assume that's about where I end up. So 6,800 on FanDuel, small shooting guard, small forward. So I just have, like Gary Trent's $200 cheaper. I prefer Trent. We've got Rozier in there, Giddey in there, both guys at 6,500, way, way, way more owned than Dort. In theory, I like him as a bit of a pivot there. But if once the ownership gets to like 7%, it's not going to matter all that much.
Yeah. And I mean, the other thing too is, the Thunder could just get their asses kicked in this game. And that's probably the most likely scenario where these guys fail. Like, I don't think Giddey fails because there's a big game from Lou Dort, most likely. I think if he fails, it's probably just because they get their asses kicked. If the game's competitive, I expect Giddey probably has to do fairly well from a fantasy standpoint, especially at his FanDuel salary.
Any guards that are getting ownership that you don't agree with?
Let's see. Do we have an ownership update yet? Not yet. So I'll go through FanDuel and DK. You know what I think people are overrating a little bit? The impact that Kemba Walker being out has on the Knicks, because I get that Kemba Walker was starting, but he was playing terribly. He had like a sub 10% usage rate over the last couple of weeks, and he was playing under 20 minutes. So while I have Alec Burks in my player pool, and I do think he's going to start today, I'm not just looking at Alec Burks as like a lock and load type guy. I think he's going to play extra minutes for sure. But Kemba Walker being out is much less impactful than I think people think it's going to be when you just look at Kemba's recent games.
Yeah, I gave Burks the bump. He seems to be the guy that I'm getting to that isn't RJ. Like RJ Barrett's just, I was going to get to him one way or the other, but I got Burks up to 30 minutes. I'm getting about 20% there. That's sort of matching the field, at least on the last run. Not getting to too much else from the Knicks other than Barrett and Burks, but we have seen Burks start in these situations and play 36 minutes. I think that's on the table, and that's what sort of scares me. I didn't really know how high to go with his minutes.
Yeah, and it's a reasonable concern because off the top of my head, his splits this year are egregious. Like if Tom Thibodeau brings him off the bench, he just doesn't play minutes. He plays like 20 minutes per game and then he starts. And Tibbs like, hey, we're going to play this guy the entire game now. But at the same time, it's not that many minutes to fill. Like I was saying before, Kemba was not playing unless he just gets every single minute left behind by Kemba Walker, which I guess that's a possibility, but I don't think it's the most likely scenario. I think that he is viable but is just getting owned too much, which was what your question was.
Chandre might hit the win for worst comment in chat. Wiggins is an all-star in today's NBA. I assume what he's saying is he wouldn't be on a roster back then.
Not only would he be on a roster,
he'd be one of the best players in the NBA.
Like JaVale McGee would be like an MVP candidate if you put him in a time machine and put him back in time. Also, the reason Wiggins is a starter in the All-Star game this year is because he got a big push from like K-pop Twitter. It's not based just on basketball merits. Now, I think him being an all-star is actually not as ridiculous as I kind of thought it was at first glance, just because of the dumb rules with positions, and there's just a lack of forwards to choose from in the Western Conference this year.
Good.
But he's playing really good defense. He shot extremely well from three this year and last year. Now, how much of that is due to his own shot creation? How much is it because of the gravity of Steph Curry? Probably more of the latter than anything else. But either way, Wiggins has been valuable this year. But to pretend that he wouldn't just kick everybody's asses 20 years ago, that's also kind of silly. People be talking about him like he was Wilt Chamberlain in terms of being a freak athlete.
I was going to say, they'd be talking about him like he was prime Clyde Drexler. Like he would just be exceptional.
Yeah.
And like, I don't have anything else to add there. That's just how it'd be.
Yeah. And
we got ownership
be
said, by the way.
And the same thing could be said for basically anybody who's fairly athletic in the league today. No, they wouldn't. But then it goes back to my same evolution point. As if he threw them in the league 20 years ago, they wouldn't have access to the same workout information, the same diet information. They wouldn't be the same athlete. It's why ultimately these arguments are kind of stupid. It's just fun to have because people get so upset about them.
It's really insane. It's wild. It's truly wild how mad people get. Updated ownership. We've got, wow, where the hell did he go? All right, Zach LaVine is now 5% owned on FanDuel. That feels still off. Who are we missing then? Jimmy Butler up to 22.
Yeah.
Feels like I'm going to have to just manually adjust Zach LaVine's ownership or just wait for the next run. Just because I don't think I could treat it like it's 5. Otherwise, it's going to break everything I do.
I mean, if he's actually 5% owned, we're talking about one of the best GPP plays of the year because he's 7,500, Zach LaVine, and it's just a crazy price tag for him. I mean, I have him projected for nearly 40 fantasy points. That's a really, really strong outcome for somebody who's 7,500 on FanDuel and projected for almost no ownership. Now, once again, like I said before, though, I'm not really considering him on DK because he's so much more expensive there.
I want to say anything else to touch on for guards, but I'm not even going to continue the farce of like trying to label this stuff with positions any longer. So we're just going to go straight into schedule for the rest of the day is already over. We don't have anything else going on. We're going to go for another hour from this moment right now. So make sure you are sticking around with us all the way up until 7:30 for today. NBA player rankings and NHL player projections are free today. Pretty sure I don't have that in my run sheet, but I definitely did get it right by looking at a different document. So if you need NBA player rankings, congratulations. They are free for today. All right, now we will continue with this farce since I don't think that we're going to be seeing anything else anytime soon. Lowry, Robinson, Butler, Tucker, Adebayo, starters for the Miami Heat. I don't think that's all that surprising.
Yeah, basically what we're starting. We could talk about Kyle Lowry now too, because he's somebody else who's really, really cheap on FanDuel. And another guy who people were so upset about his performance last game, but ultimately the game was a blowout. He scored 32 fantasy points on FanDuel at 5,800. Another guy who's just way differently priced on FanDuel compared to DK. I love getting to Kyle Lowry at point guard today. He's going to be fairly popular. But I still think he's a good piece of chalk, and I'm overweight to him. 5,600, that's a price tag that's just not going to exist on Kyle Lowry for much longer.
See, here's my problem. I think Spencer Dinwiddie is just a better play, $300 more expensive, ignoring ownership.
Yeah, not for me. I mean, I'm overweight to both of them, but I have more exposure to Lowry.
What do you have Spencer Dinwiddie projected for on FanDuel?
All right. So I have Dinwiddie projected for a little over 30 fantasy points.
I'm a little over 30 as well. And by a little over, I mean at 34.5.
Okay. Yeah. By a little over 30. I mean like fractions over 30.
Sure. And I've got Kyle Lowry at 30.9.
Yeah. I have Kyle Lowry at 32.
Okay. Yeah. That'll do it.
And he's also cheaper.
He is cheaper. I like that ownership discount, but that is causing me the problem of not getting to as much Lowry. I am getting to a little bit of Burks and Trey Mann in that same sort of range of Lowry. I'm definitely not getting to all that much Jordan Clarkson. Ownership updated again per chat. So might as well grab that, I guess.
All right. Let's see what's going on with LaVine. I assume this is going to be a LaVine update, right?
Well, I'll tell you one update that just happened. Kyle Lowry. Oh, no, wait, never mind. It didn't really change. 31.6. For some reason, I flipped that in my head and I was looking at it as 36. I was like, wow, that went up even further. That's not actually the case.
So LaVine has gone up.
Yeah, up to
13%. Obviously more reasonable than the 5% ownership, but I'm still way overweight to that number.
What's really funny is I typed in 13 as my manual override before we got that. So that actually, yeah, spot on. Nailed it. Felt pretty good about it. So if I refresh now, I'm getting to 29% LaVine. I am oddly light on Dinwiddie. Oddly light on Lowry. I'm anxious to see how that changes when I manually adjust Spencer Dinwiddie down a bit. Where are you at the forward line? Scotty Barnes, quite popular today, or anything from Toronto, really, or from Charlotte for that matter. Barnes, Barrett, Bridges. I'm getting all the Bs. Diakite. Am I enunciating that correctly?
You are enunciating that correctly. So Diakite, who is different on FanDuel and DK for this reason. Diakite over on FanDuel is 3,900 and power forward eligible. Over on DK, though, Diakite only has center eligibility. So one of the reasons it was so easy to get to Diakite on the last league, I can't remember if that was, it was 2 days ago, I believe Saturday night, where he was an uber chalk play.
Don't want to cut you off. Andre Iguodala and Otto Porter will play. Porter starting.
Cool. All right. So nothing to change. Boy, we nailed this one. Didn't have to change anything. Usually I would be just scrambling to make updates at this point, but don't have to. So Diakite on a couple slates ago was the flat min on DK, plus he had power forward and center eligibility. So it was really easy to fit in. A little different today when he only has center eligibility on DK. So he's somebody I still like getting to, but it's not quite the same look because there's a lot of other centers that I like getting to on FanDuel. Let's see, where's his current ownership at? Most recent run, he came in at 24%. I'm a little bit over the field on him, but about neutral.
I'm under on FanDuel right now, pretty significantly at this point. Just not one of those days where I think that I need to pay down that far, just because we don't even really have pay up options. I'm not particularly fond of 10-2 Chris Paul. DeRozan is at 10-4, and then Vooch is at 10-5. Everybody else is basically in the 9Ks or in the 8Ks. So I haven't felt that I needed to really go to the absolute bottom of the barrel for any value. It scares me a little bit, but it's Oklahoma City. So that scares me too.
Yes. I mean, so many of my lineups end up being stars and scrubs. Just it's the nature of NBA DFS, especially once you get to the midpoint of the year. So many players get ruled out. That happens all the time. But if I look at my most rostered player at every single position today on both FanDuel and DK, it's generally guys in the mid range in terms of pricing. And one of them that stands out is Gordon Hayward on both FanDuel and DraftKings. Yeah. It's just a ridiculous price tag. And another one of these spots where people are going to look at recent game logs, be like, oh, look, Gordon Hayward sucked last game. Yeah, it was also a game that was not competitive. He played 22 minutes. Assuming that Gordon Hayward goes back to playing 30-ish minutes, this is the lowest price we've seen on him. I can't even remember when he was.
It's got to be ever, unless he's on a minutes limit.
It was the time that he was on Boston, and he unexpectedly came back from a broken finger, and he was just min price on an 18 minutes restriction. People were still playing him. Other than that, this is just not a price we see for a relatively healthy Gordon Hayward. So to me, if we're just looking at historical pricing projections I have for him, he's to me the best overall play on the slate on a points per dollar sense.
It's hard for me to disagree there. I do want to go back and touch on Mikey B's message. He's been a member for 11 months. Last man in for a one-chip challenge, Greg or Loughy. I'm not bringing Loughy anywhere nowadays. Dude didn't even have the balls to eat the entire chip the last time. So, Greg, you're in for an incredibly spicy chip.
Yeah, that's a poor choice because I have my Crohn's and ulcerative colitis. You've made a poor decision. I have a lot of dietary restrictions.
Look, that is a problem for another day. You'll be fine in the time that you have to eat the chip. I'm not going to be around for all of the problems that it causes you after the fact.
Fair enough. This is more of a me problem than a you problem.
Yeah, it is. I don't think anything's stopping you from eating it. You're just going to really not enjoy passing it.
No, I wouldn't enjoy any of it. I might have to be hospitalized from the sickness. So none of it would be good. But what's on the line here? What are you winning from it?
I assume absolutely nothing, but yeah, Loughy didn't eat the whole damn thing before, and that was due to absolutely nothing other than fear. So yeah, I'm sure I'll still take you to chew that bad boy up and cross your fingers. Sorry, I got to do that to you though.
No, it's okay. I understand when people leave questions for us in YouTube, it's like getting the double dog dare when you're in fourth or fifth grade. It's just the gauntlet's been thrown down. You have to live up to the chat.
Yeah, I know right now Loughy can't finish that chip, so I have to choose someone else by default. He's too big of a coward. And if you think Loughy's a coward, go ahead and hit that thumbs up. We're at 856 likes. We need right now 142 more people that think Loughy is a coward for not eating that chip to go ahead and hit that thumbs up. All right. We've got 22 minutes to go. I need to touch a little bit on Yahoo because you can go to awesemo.com/Yahoo-promo. You'll get a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum, a little bit of a deposit bonus as well. But you got to be new to Yahoo. Sign up for an account using the link that either pops up in chat or is in the description of the video. Yahoo will send us your name after you play in your first paid contest. We will then reach out to you with a coupon code. That's all you got to do. If you need it to go faster, support at awesemo.com. You can get into the $50,000 NBA baller for today. You can get in the $1 million baller for the Super Bowl. And we have a free roll for the Super Bowl where you could win $1,000 and a free year of Awesemo Plus Platinum. So check out the link in the description. Now, please, what is going on?
Well, for one, you look like you just saw Greg Oden in the shower. Your face is frozen, but you just look. It was the best ad read ever, but you just look shocked.
Well, as it turns out, can't turn the thing back on. Looks like I froze Zoom. So if you can still hear me, I'm here. But
this is perfect.
Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, this is perfect. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes. Zoom is going to crash and I'm going to come back in, but I'm letting you guys know right now it's about to happen.
Okay. Well, I'd prefer if you just stayed frozen like this for the rest of the show because I'm personally really enjoying this. Is there a way, could you manually reset it and I could just talk about some of my most rostered forwards?
You need to just go right now and I'm going to close. I'm clicking close right now.
All right. So we'll see Josh in a little bit. I'm going to take over for now. Also, just to kind of put a bow on some of the guard position, these are some of my most rostered players at guard right now across FanDuel and DraftKings. Kyle Lowry for FanDuel, Kyle Lowry, Terry Rozier, Donovan Mitchell, Josh Giddey, Fred VanVleet, RJ Barrett, Gordon Hayward also has guard eligibility over on FanDuel for DK. Fred VanVleet, Donovan Mitchell, Quickly has guard eligibility. And I just view Quickly as a fairly good pivot off of Alec Burks because Burks, it looks like he's going to be the guy who's going to be really chalk today. We've got Burks right now projected for, it's come down a little bit, but 20% ownership over on FanDuel. DK is still projected for 26% ownership. I don't know exactly how the Knicks are going to allocate those minutes, but I think it's just as likely that Quickly picks up extra minutes as it does Burke. So I think Quickly is a pretty good, oh, look, Josh is back. Pretty good pivot off of Burks. I was just putting a bow on the guards that we hadn't talked about.
That's fair. Just FYI, if I saw Greg Oden in the shower, I would have a way bigger smile on my face.
Well, your mouth was open pretty wide. That was also part of the.
I could not get it. I'm not a snake, man. I couldn't unhinge my jaw. Just wouldn't be able to do it. Jordan, you all right?
Yeah, Jordan's dead. He fell off his chair.
I don't know. Is he laughing? Is he touching himself?
He was laughing and he fell out of his chair.
Unbelievable. Dalton Hendley with the super chat. Scotty Barnes or Otto Porter on FanDuel. That is not particularly close.
That is Scotty Barnes.
I've got Scotty Barnes by 12 fantasy points and 60% ownership.
Yeah, I have, let's see. This is a FanDuel question, right?
It was a FanDuel
question.
Correct.
So Scotty Barnes is one of my most rostered players on the entire slate. I have 7 lineups with Otto Porter.
Yeah, that's we're basically in the exact same spot. So 933 likes. Apparently not everybody thinks Loughy's a coward for eating that chip. Well, hit the like button if you're proud of me for eating it. No questions asked. Right down the gullet. Ruined my day too.
Was it worth it?
No, dude, it was really, really bad. I was crying in my office, just like laying in the fetal position. But I had to produce a golf show like immediately after it. So I basically just started it. And I had to tell Ben and Tim, like, yo, I'll be back in an hour. If it goes down, it goes down. It was really, really, really bad.
And what did it go away like after you went to the bathroom at some point or?
No. So the problem for me was that I had nothing in my stomach. I only had coffee at that point in time. I laid no base. So it just turned into this like hot lava water sloshing around. So it hurt everywhere. I eventually was able, once the golf show ended, I was able to drag myself to the car, drive to Burger King and get a vanilla milkshake. And at that point, that extinguished the fire. The poop was bad.
Was it still hot coming out?
It was hot coming out. Yes.
Yeah, I want no part of that.
DM from Rimpack said, me demolishing the pizza bites was more impressive than that one chip. I agree. The chip was easy. It just sucks. Now, don't get me wrong. I found the pizza bites easy, and everyone that doubted me got smushed in the face with that one. They set a line that it was like over under 60. I knew that I could do that in my sleep. I think I had 60 in 5 minutes. You guys were crazy. 110 minutes. Can't beat it. Delicious too. Delicious.
If I was back in college when I had a healthier digestive system and in my real performance enhancing days, I would be right there with you.
I didn't even enhance my performance for that one either. Not that I remember, at least, but that's par for the course. Centers?
Let's see. I'm just kind of uploading my lineups now. I want to see if there's any other forwards that I have a lot of exposure to that we haven't brought up yet. All right. So forwards, Miles Bridges is also more of a FanDuel specific play than DK, but where he's 7K on FanDuel. I mean, that game is such a good spot to target the Charlotte Hornets versus the Toronto Raptors. Number one, it has the highest, second highest total on the slate at 224. It's also expected to be pretty competitive, only a 1 point spread. But also, the Raptors just play their starters for almost the entire game. So you know what you're getting out of them. Also, the Hornets suck on defense. But then you have all these Hornets guys who are particularly on FanDuel just randomly discounted, not as much on DK other than Gordon Hayward. So I generally like to leave myself a little bit of flexibility to be able to make late swaps in my lineups. Not today. FanDuel, my lineups are so heavy on that Hornets Raptors game.
You and me both. I don't know how to not have different combinations of everything there. Other than OG Anunoby, who's just like slightly overpriced on FanDuel, it's just let it rip. And it's not to say that I don't like OG Anunoby. I actually like him because he's low owned in a way. He just, he has a price tag that isn't as advantageous as everybody else, but I don't know how that isn't just ultra. I don't know how to, like, Toronto is my most exposed team right now. Charlotte is my second most exposed team. That's not all that surprising. That's where the ownership is going to, but can't dodge it.
The only player I don't have a lot of relative to ownership is Gary Trent Jr. because he's $6,600 on FanDuel and he's expected to be fairly popular. He still has that inflated price from that crazy heater that he went on. And then over on DK 6,300, only shooting guard eligibility 18% on. So I'm underweight to him, but overweight on like everybody else in that game.
It's a great game to attack. That's for sure. I need Terry Rozier to not be the guy for Charlotte and I'll be all right.
I still have a bunch of Rozier though. Also,
I have him. Just that's the guy that I'm like most light on. Rory O'Connor had the super chat. Thoughts on Caldwell Pope tonight? That's a deep cut. He's an indifferent basketball player today. Although a DraftKings, he's got like a dumb price, right?
He's 3,600 on DK. So as a value play for this slate, I do like him on DK. Also, last I checked, it's not like he's projected for 13% ownership at 3,600 with Bradley Beal out. I'm overweight to the field on Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and I'm not sure that's been the case on one other slate for me the entire season. But relative to his ownership and the pricing here, he's one of my favorite value tournament options on DK.
Yeah, that price on draft, I totally forgot that I knew like his DraftKings price was just full on broken. So not somebody that I'm really getting to on FanDuel. Very different play on DK. So if you're playing on DK, that's your spot. Bean Clover Gaming, Barrett or Wiggins, no sight given.
Barrett.
It is Barrett. It absolutely is. Clay's apparently available to play 30 minutes instead of 28. Give him an extra fantasy point, I guess.
Yeah, so it's funny because Clay coming back, is really exciting because of the upside. There are individual games where it's just gonna be like, oh my God, look, Klay Thompson just hit 8 threes in the third quarter. He scored all these points. He's not that good of a fantasy producer though, because he's so reliant on scoring. I understand last game he had 5 rebounds and 7 assists, most assists he had in a very, very long time, and the rebounds, whatever. But like he doesn't really produce defensive stats generally. And if he doesn't make his shots, he just kind of sucks for fantasy standpoint. And the other thing too is just because his minutes restriction has been raised to 30 Doesn't mean he's going to get to 30 because they very, very may well blow this game out.
I gave him like an extra minute and it's not, or an extra point, and it's probably not going to make much of a difference. I have like 5%. I just hope I had dodged the day where he shoots the lights out, like you said.
Yeah, I have him. He's in 10% of my lineups.
Okay. 12 minutes to go until lock. So you guys better start working to get your lineups in. Otherwise, well, it's not going to help you out all that much, you know? I'm feeling good. I like where I'm at right now, and I like that we don't have a huge scramble going on.
No, and we have pretty much all of the pertinent news at this point, other than one, which is what I'm going to talk about next when it comes to center position, because I've actually been really curious for your take on this all day. Does Hassan Whiteside start at center for the Jazz today?
I have no idea. I gave him 26 minutes.
I love him in tournaments today.
I have 17% on FanDuel right now.
The upside
that feels about right for me right now.
The upside is so substantial, and I mean, so is the downside too. Don't get me wrong, but here's kind of how I viewed Whiteside when I was looking at this. Was before I even looked at the final ownership. I had already decided if Whiteside is popular, I'm hardly going to play him. If he is not going to be rostered in tournaments, I decided well in advance I'm going to be playing a ton of Hassan Whiteside, which is where I'm at now. He is projected for 8% ownership on FanDuel. Over on DK, Whiteside is projected for 6% ownership at $6,000. There's a ceiling for Whiteside to go out, start this game, and score 50 fantasy points. There's a downside that he comes off the bench behind Azubuike and plays like 22 minutes, and then I just have to swap all my lineups coming up. But as of right now, I've just set my lineups assuming that Whiteside is the starter, and that's an easy enough way for me to set it up. I'll pivot off of him some if that doesn't end up being the case. But I think he moves back into the starting lineup today and is just grossly underowned relative to what his potential ceiling is.
And you have a natural, like if you just want to be quick about your offloading, you can cut him in half and turn it into Mitchell Robinson right away. And you don't really have to bat an eye, at least on FanDuel, where Robinson's $300 cheaper than Whiteside. Yeah, like I said, I don't have a great feel for it. 26 minutes felt about right to get him, but not go crazy. Because obviously, if I project Hassan Whiteside for 30 minutes right now, he's in 50% of my lineups. And that's not necessarily the stand that I need to take. I think there's too much downside there. But I'm happy to be 2x the field, at least as of right now.
Yeah, I kind of like taking the stand and just being way, way overweight to the field on him. I gave him 28 minutes, and that gets him into he's my most rostered center today. And the downside is don't play him in cash games. The downside is really significant. But once again, tournaments where I'm just looking for that upside, I think that he's a really, really strong low-owned option.
Let me just click save here and upload this. Oh, I already did it. Great. I got 2 super chats that I need to touch on. First one, Boucher for 25 to 30 ? I don't know if that means points or minutes. I assume it's points. I'm actually getting to a bit of Boucher on FanDuel, 4,600, 5% owned. Just the type of guy that every extra minute he gets, sort of like the Hassan Whiteside discussion that we just had at a slightly different price tag. I don't have any reason to totally suspect that he falls into any extra time, but he's the type of guy that every extra minute he gets is going to really change the tenor of this slate.
Yeah, I gave Boucher 22 minutes, and that gets me to him about double the field on him on FanDuel.
Yeah.
DK, where he's priced at 4,900. I don't really get to him as much on DK. I just don't find him to be a necessary piece. But, you know, FanDuel, where we have to roster 2 power forwards, I get to him in double-digit lineups.
Yeah, I'm willing to take that shot for today. Seems like an interesting, flyer. I am God TV. I need a final pick for prize picks. Can't use Randall, Siakam, or Mikal Bridges. So we just got to, and John Good, I'm going to get to yours. I just scrolled down too far. We just got to pick like a random prize picks pick. That's hard.
All right. So
you hitting up the prize picks tool?
Yeah. Get to the next super chat and I'll bring this up while we're doing that.
John Good wants to know Javonte Green, Jay Crowder, or Royce O'Neal, last man in on DraftKings. I assume that's Royce O'Neal for me, but I'm going to actually look.
Those are like none of those guys are players that I'm playing today.
Javonte Green, I have at 22 fantasy points. I assume all these guys are like right next to each other in price. I have Javonte Green at 22, Jay Crowder at 22.4, and Royce O'Neal at 24.2. Royce O'Neal is the guy for me.
Who are the players that he said he already played on Prize Picks?
Randall, Siakam, and Bridges.
Okay. Well, I was gonna say Bridges as one of mine, so that's obviously no longer an option. I think I have one here. Yeah, I do. Gary Trent for over 2.5 rebounds. That is a very low number for somebody who's going to play a lot of minutes because Nick Nurse knows no other way.
It's so true. It's so true. Oh God, I feel like I should have more Terry Rozier. It's scaring me. It's scaring me.
Scary Terry. I have a bunch of them.
He's a good guy to have a bunch of, you know?
I just
I'm feeling pretty good, though. Like, this is the first time that you and I haven't had to scramble for anything really in a while. I don't know why I'm saying that at 654, but because it seems like I'm a moron for doing it.
No, the only thing I'm personally likely going to have to change for is if Whiteside doesn't start, which hopefully we get that starting lineup before the 8 p.m. games. If not, then I could potentially be screwed with some of my swappability options, but hopefully that also would reduce his ownership.
Do we want to talk most exposed players?
One other talking point at center. I liked Ayton a lot as a GPP play the other day, and he didn't play that many minutes. He had he scored 2 fantasy points per minute in 24 minutes against the Wizards. Ayton, once again, I think he's getting slept on a little bit on this slate. As long as Chris Paul's in there as the point guard, Ayton is going to get a lot of easy buckets, and he's always going to grab a lot of rebounds. Defensive stats are a possibility. His price is down in both FanDuel and DK. I think he goes back to playing normal minutes today. He came back from injury, played limited minutes. Last game, it was only because of a blowout. He looked great when he was out on the court. So the upside is clearly there. He is 14% projected owned on DK. On FanDuel, Ayton is right now at 17%. I'm a little bit overweight to him on FanDuel, but overweight to him a pretty good amount on DK.
Yeah, I've got 24%. I'm with you for those past however many games he's been like back and playing. I've been getting significantly over the field, and it just hasn't been able to be delivered to me the way that I would have liked it. But I'm right back there again. He is my second most exposed center today.
He is for me as well, behind Hassan Whiteside.
But I am casting a pretty wide net of guys in like the 15 to 25 range. Bam, Ayton, Whiteside. I've got a bit of Mitchell Robinson, PJ Washington, Trez, a little bit of Boucher. Still have shares of Vooch and Randall, and that's about it at the center spot. But like, that's how our ownership looks too. I mean, on FanDuel, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys between 10 and 24. And I have pretty much all of those guys save for Kevon Looney in a similar amount of lineups.
As we go to talk about our most rostered players, I'm curious, did you play quickly at all? Because he was somebody when you froze with your horrified face, and I was just kind of going back and touching on some of the guards we hadn't talked about yet. I mentioned quickly as being somebody I really like as a tournament pivot off of Alec Burks. Is that a path you went down at all?
I have 7%. So yes, but not in any sort of significant way. But if he really is 1.5% owned, then I think I have about the amount of quickly that I should have.
He is 3,600 on DK.
I would have quite a bit more given the fact that I have 7 on FanDuel at 4,400.
Yeah. So particularly on DK, also something different about Burks is projected for 26% ownership on DK. So yeah. I just really like that pivot there.
Yeah, absolutely. You never know what's going to happen in one of those games. It quickly can fall into 28 minutes one day and 4 the next. I'm waiting for Cam Reddish to be the guy today.
Oh, it will not happen. We could talk about that after the slate locks and how dumb the Knicks are, because I do think that's kind of a funny thing. But yeah, for now we could do.
Tibbs didn't want him.
Yeah, it's just absolutely terribly run franchise from top to bottom. Why don't you do your most rostered players position by position on FanDuel, and I'll do it for DK.
Done. Will do. Most rostered point guard. And honestly, I'm going to have to give like a couple answers for some of these things. So, because some of it's comparable. Josh Giddey and Spencer Dinwiddie are the two at the top. Fred VanVleet and LaMelo are probably in the second tier, and I'm significantly above the field on all of those guys. No regrets on any of those names. How do you feel about Giddey, Dinwiddie, VanVleet, and LaMelo?
No real issues with any of them for me on DK, My most rostered point guards are Fred VanVleet and Donovan Mitchell. Shooting guard, also Donovan Mitchell. So throwing up quickly being another one who I really, really do like as a tournament pivot.
At shooting guard, Giddey overlaps again, and he is well above everyone else. And then I got a pack of 3 guys in the 30s. That is RJ Barrett, Gary Trent, and Zach LaVine.
Small forward for me is Gordon Hayward and Kelly Oubre. Over on DK at power forward, it also Hayward, and then just a lot of guys spread out.
Small forward, Scotty Barnes, miles ahead of everybody else. And then we get that same pack with RJ Barrett and Gary Trent. I add in 30% of Miles Bridges. And 2 big, look, Royce O'Neal and OG Anunoby are both 7% owned on FanDuel. I have in the 20s of both of those guys. Those are 2 of the biggest like flyer stands that I'm taking. Not that I'm super excited about either one of those things, but it is happening.
By the way, I just went to check my Twitter. Just a ton of it's just like all the notifications. It's just pictures of your face with with your mouth open.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I did upload my lineups, right? It's
I hope so.
40 seconds.
My most rostered centers, Whiteside and Ayton.
Okay. Power forward is still Scotty Barnes, and then it's smushed together. Centers is Harrell, Ayton, PJ Washington. Those are the only guys over 20. Sort of an unimportant position for me today.
Harrell is my 3rd most rostered center today.
Well, we locked an hour in the books. We still have 2,900 people in here. We are 8 likes shy of 1,000. Go ahead and hit that if you haven't done it yet. That way you don't have to hear me talk about it for the next 30 minutes. Time to start looking at ownership and figuring out what actually is going on today. Oh, actually, you know what I want to do? I want to hit you with two questions first, because you and I haven't talked in a couple days.
Yep.
Thoughts on the Clippers Blazers trade, just in general, and then thoughts on the Pacers trade.
Yeah. Well, also, because we kind of teased it at the top, the Cam Reddish thing. So if people haven't seen the Knicks news, so Cam Reddish has played a total of 20 minutes since getting traded to the Knicks. And what would the trade happen a month ago now at this point? And at the time, people are going crazy. Oh my God, the Knicks ripped off the Hawks. I thought it was an even trade. I thought it made sense for the Knicks. They're taking a gamble on somebody who I think has some upside. The odds of him reaching that ceiling are very, very low, but I think there is a ceiling there. I thought it was a reasonable gamble to take by the Knicks. And then from the Hawks, it was a player who his contract is about to expire next year. They have no intention of signing him. And he's not good right now. And this is a team that's looking to compete and make a playoff push. So he was expendable to them. They got back an asset for him. They got a 1st-round pick. So I looked at what's likely going to be a late 1st-round pick. So I looked at, reasonable gamble for both sides. But then today's story comes out. Thibodeau didn't want to trade for Cam Reddish. He's just not playing him at all because Tom Thibodeau is always in win now mode. Cam Reddish is not going to help anybody to win now because he's not good now. Could he be good in the future? Like I said, yes, just the probability is really low. But the fact that Knicks could be so disjointed that at no point did they say to Tibbs, well, are you going to play him if we trade for him? Because if he's not, the answer just should have been an easy, well, we're not going to trade for him if you're not going to play him. So What the hell are the Knicks doing?
I have no idea. It makes no sense. He must be so pissed. Ooh, PJ Washington, 6.4% owned on FanDuel today. Was half of what we had in ownership. So I do have quite a bit of him. I like that a lot. We nailed Spencer Dinwiddie's ownership basically to the 10th% or 100th%, I guess is the correct way to say that. Came in at 17.2 and we had 17.3. So yeah, go Spencer Dinwiddie, considering I have him in half of everything I have.
I'm a little bit overweight to Dinwiddie, but not in the way that you are.
Yeah, it's aggressive. Boucher ended up at 10 on FanDuel, which is basically he's like the opposite of PJ Washington. I have them both, so it doesn't really matter all that much to me.
Pulling up DK while you're doing that.
Plumlee a little bit lighter than I thought. Scotty Barnes ended up in 45% of lineups. I'm still over the field, but a little bit less than I was previous to that. Miles Bridges ended up at 37. A little bit higher. I'm actually lighter than the field now on Miles Bridges by a slight bit. Ooh, Van Vliet, 38%. I feel like that's high now. Yeah, we had them significantly lower than that.
Davis
like everybody just got to my favorite guys.
Kentavious Caldwell-Pope ended up being 12% owned on DK, 3,600.
That's insane.
Not any good, but there's not that much. But there's not that much value on the slate. I'm well overweight to that 12% number.
I mean, I almost had that much on FanDuel.
Gordon Hayward, 46%. Miles Bridges, 12%. Fred VanVleet ended up being 43% owned on DK.
That's a big number. Not that I think it's crazy, but oh shit. How much Kobe White did I end up with? Because he's in this lineup that I'm looking at right now. And I think that matters. Kobe White. Okay, 6%. That's easy to fix.
I would have played less of Fred VanVleet if I knew he was going to be 43% owned now.
That's fair. Ooh, the baller on Yahoo apparently didn't fill. Per chat. I think I've got everybody's ownership that I actually cared about on FanDuel here, unless I'm missing someone. Every once in a while, it's like a guy that I faded when I'm just trying to, grab the biggest updates. Oh, like Kyle Lowry. That's someone where I have a lot less and I need to figure out how owned he is. So now I got to start looking at other people's lineups. Jimmy Butler ended up 15% on FanDuel. It's exactly what I ended up with. So nothing all that interesting there. Oh, there we go. Lowry, 43. Kyle Lowry is 43% owned on FanDuel. That's the guy I need to die today because I got 10%.
What did I end up with on Lowry? I think I have like 40%. So I'm pretty even with the field there. What did Rozier, did you say, end up being?
On FanDuel, Terry Rozier, 39.
Oh.
I believe. I think I typed over it at least.
I'm surprised Gordon Hayward isn't more popular.
I haven't seen it yet, actually.
Contest I pulled up on FanDuel, he's 34%.
Is it the big 150 max?
Let's see, what is it?
By the way, Terry Rozier, 39.2.
Oh, the one I pulled up was the 444 150.
I'm in the 777 150. Gordon Hayward, 31% owned.
Yeah, like so pretty much it's usually going to be about the same numbers on both those. But either way, I mean, I thought that he should have been, like over 50% owned on FanDuel. I
am light on Gordon Hayward.
Really? Light on the 30%?
Yeah, I have half. Going to be wild.
Yeah,
I'm excited to sweat this slate. I don't know. I got a good feeling. Usually those are the nights where I just get truly bent over, but
get overtime in the Hornets Raptors game. Is a little early to sweat overtime.
Probably. If that happens, I hope that all of the buckets are going to Scotty Barnes, Fred VanVleet, Trent, Anunoby. Well, anybody from Toronto, really. And then on Charlotte, I just really need it to not be Terry Rozier or Gordon Hayward. It would be really dope if it was Washington Ball Bridges.
Logged in my NBA account. As soon as one of those games start, I'll pull it up on my second screen here to answer your questions from before.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk it through.
So starting with the Portland Clippers trade, I just assume this has to mean Damian Lillard isn't coming back this year. It's such a I get why the Blazers want to move off of the Norman Powell contract, but
yeah.
Doesn't there have to be better value out there for him? They basically just took on, they didn't really get any future assets. They got Eric Bledsoe, who also has a bad contract. He just has a shorter bad contract than Norman Powell's contract. And Powell's contract isn't terrible. It's probably more than he'd get if he was on the market again. But even
they just gave it to him.
But yeah, they just gave it to him. So it's such a, I just don't really understand what the Blazers' motives are here or what they're trying to do. The other thing too is everybody's talking about what's going to happen with Dame. And, Dame's been really adamant that he wants to stay in Portland. I think there's a part of this that's not being discussed. Does Portland want Dame in Portland? Because I don't know that I want to pay. How old is Dame now? 32?
I would be doing everything in my power as the Portland Trailblazers to sell him.
Which that's my point. So he's 31. He turns 32 in a few months. That to me is the underrated, the overlooked part of this. If I'm the Blazers, I don't want to sign Damian Lillard to a max extension when this contract expires. I think it's going to age terribly. generally
he's
small.
already set to make $49 million in 24-25.
So they would be paying him the next max contract. They're paying him till what? He's 37, 38. And I know I just talked about how the aging curves, we have to look at them differently for players now than it's been in the past. And I still think that holds true to an extent, but at the same time too, we're already starting to see wear and tear on Damian Lillard. This is the worst season that he's had in quite some time. Now, I understand that it's because of injury reasons, and maybe there's a case to be made, well, he's going to look like Dame again when he's healthy. But maybe he's just a little bit compromised physically now. So that to me is something that I think people are sleeping on when it comes to this Damian Lillard thing is I don't want to be the team that signs him to his next contract extension.
No, I would be taking all the picks that I could find for him in the offseason and calling it a day. I'd also be selling off CJ McCollum right now and starting over. I think that's the best way to do it. Like, would you want Ben Simmons in this scenario?
He doesn't fit their timeline though. Like at this point, you just blow it up, right?
I mean, what timeline? Like if you're trading Damian Lillard, if you're trading Lillard and you're trading CJ, then everything's the timeline. Like, what's Ben Simmons? 26, 25?
Where's Ben Simmons? By the way, Adam G, who I just muted, and very cool. You're the coolest person
25.
I've ever seen. So 25, he's going to be 26 next year.
Yeah.
Just blow the whole thing up, tank. I think that's what you have to do to rebuild it for them. You don't even take on Simmons. You don't even want to risk winning games. Just ground zero. Get rid of. And I understand Damian Lillard seems to want to stay in Portland, despite there's one of the funniest things that happened to me that I thought in the offseason was Henry Abbott arguing with Damian Lillard on Twitter whether Damian Lillard wanted to be traded or not. And people agreeing with Henry Abbott. People just being like, hey, it was Henry Abbott put out a report about how Damian Lillard was going to hold out from training camp because he didn't want to report to the Blazers. He was going to refuse to play for them again. And Dame responded, he's like, what are your sources? Like, this isn't true. And he's like, I hold true to my source. And people after that still were saying Damian Lillard is going to demand a trade. And Damian Lillard, like every 3 days, he's saying he wants to be in Portland for the rest of his career. But still, this brings me back to the other thing, which is if I'm the Portland Trailblazers, I don't want Dame long-term. I don't want McCollum. I don't want Nurkic. Blow the whole thing up, get whatever picks you can right now, and just suck for a couple of years and hope you hit on another Dame in the lottery.
Who would want Dame?
A lot of teams.
I don't know where he fits. All right, I'm just going to start naming teams, and we're going to be able to cross off a lot of them. Ready?
Okay.
Heat. No.
Yeah, they just don't have the salary to make it work.
Bulls. No.
Right.
Bucks. No.
No, that wouldn't work from a salary perspective. I mean, all these teams would want Dame. It's just, logistically.
Right. What I mean is like they are not going to be the team that does this. It's just unequivocally that's not going to be the place. Cleveland Cavaliers could be interesting. I don't get the sense that they're going to want to send Garland back. You can't do it without including Garland. You can't do it for Okoro and picks and Kevin Love's salary.
Well, Sexton.
Like a sign-in trade?
Yeah.
Okay. Would the Cavs want this to happen? Yes. I think that we're going to see better packages than whatever we're trying to put together here. If you can't include anybody else. Everybody that's saying the Lakers needs to just shut up. That's impossible. Philadelphia 76ers. I don't think that this can happen without Ben Simmons being a part of it.
No, but it could be a three-way trade where Simmons goes to another team that isn't the Portland Trailblazers. That's probably the most likely scenario.
Sure. Raptors, that's a clear no. Nets is a clear no. Celtics.
Dude, there's so much weirdness going on. Or at least I don't buy into a lot of the reports about the Nets right now. The only caveat to this whole Nets situation is James Harden also not playing games right now and them saying, oh, it's a hamstring injury, it's a hand injury. It's all a little wonky. I tend to think Harden's just going to stay there and sign a contract extension in the offseason. That's what makes most sense. Yeah. But I do think the Nets are a viable destination.
I mean, they don't have the ability to do it, do they? I mean, they're not going to do it for a straight up swap of James Harden or a straight up swap of Kyrie, or they're just putting themselves in the exact same place. They don't have the picks. That's for sure.
No, but it would be something that would have to happen in the offseason. It would be because Harden's contract is expiring. It it would be a sign and trade with Harden and Lillard involved. And the idea would be Harden or just doesn't want to be there long term, or he doesn't mesh with Durant and Kyrie because of personality reasons. And Harden wouldn't go to Portland. He would go to a third team. But those would be the two primary pieces in the trade with a third team involved that would then be sending, draft considerations, young prospects, whatever it may be, back to Portland.
I also don't think they can play Dame and Kyrie alongside each other in the playoffs, but that's neither here nor there. Boston.
You wouldn't have thought they would be able to do it with Harden and Kyrie. Also.
Yeah, but like Harden's guarding fours in the NBA. They're not both guarding point guards.
By the way, Clarkson will play Rudy Gay, ruled out.
Nice. I took Rudy Gay out earlier. That's perfect. Boston would be interesting. Could you get it done without giving up Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum? Smart, Time Lord potentially, picks. They got a ton of. They have the picks to be able to go. Here's 3 and 2 swaps or whatever the hell you want to do.
What?
I mean, to me, like. If you're Boston, I would not want to do that because I don't necessarily think that makes you a favorite in the East, and they obviously don't line up from a timeline perspective.
I don't think it makes them the favorite in the East, but I think for Boston, it would still make some sense, especially if there's a way they could do it that doesn't include Brown or Tatum. I tend to think they'd probably have to include Brown in some way, but maybe not.
And at that point, I would never do it. Just because of his age. Hornets, obviously a clear no.
No, not with LaMelo there.
No, not with Michael Jordan owning the team.
When they already have LaMelo, it doesn't make sense.
Hawks, clear no. Wizards would want it. It would they're not going to swap it for Beal, and they don't have the bullets to do it otherwise. Bullets, get it? Knicks would love it. It's got to be Barrett and a bunch of other stuff, right?
And the Knicks might do that also, just because we were just talking about the Knicks. What the hell are they doing with the Cam Reddish trade and all that? I could see the Knicks would probably be one of the more likely destinations.
Sure. Pacers, straight no. Pistons, straight no. Orlando Magic, straight no. Not that they wouldn't want him, obviously, but they're just like, he ain't going there either. He's not like, where I need to be, Orlando.
I also think the other thing is that Dame is.
By the way, that's the whole East.
Yeah, so Dame has built up enough goodwill with Portland that they're not going to trade him to some crap situation.
Suns, no. Warriors, no. Grizzlies, no. Jazz, no. Mavs, that's on the table because Cuban will do anything.
I could see the Grizzlies actually.
Nick, you can't play Dame and John Morant next to each other.
No, defense, it would be an abomination. But
yeah, and I don't know what I don't know what they would even have to give up at that point.
They just have so much depth of young players, though.
Yeah, Mavs would be like a legitimate one. I just don't know if they have the ammo to do it. Clearly not going to be the Nuggets, although I would think about it if I were the Nuggets, depending on what you know about Murray. Timberwolves feels like a straight no, although it would be just because it would have to be Russell going back out. They're not going to trade Edwards or Cat.
Yeah.
Clippers, I mean, obviously they would love to do it. Don't have it. Lakers, no matter what people think is going to happen here, that's impossible.
It's seemingly impossible. I don't even know what would have to happen for him to go to the Lakers. The Clippers are so well put together. So well put together as an organization from top to bottom. The idea that this team could potentially not have Paul George or Kawhi Leonard for the rest of the year. By the way, if you ask me which team is going to have a better record the rest of the year, the Clippers without Kawhi Leonard or Paul George or Lakers, I'm taking the Clippers at this point.
Oh, but I've been told that the Clippers are one of the worst teams in basketball with no Paul George, worse than the Rockets and the Magic. Those are quotes from chat about my thoughts on the Clippers. They're like a 500 team without him on the floor this year.
By the way, people are asking why a trade with Damian Lillard to the Lakers. The Lakers don't have any assets.
Yeah, they have no picks to be able to do this. The matching. I don't think that they want to trade Damian Lillard for Talen Horton Tucker, Kendrick Nunn, and a 2027 first, which is basically all they can do.
Yeah, which also, here's something that's funny about fan bases. Fan bases will convince you on Twitter when they'll convince you that Taylor Horton-Tucker is a great young player, but for some reason, Lakers fans also want to include him in every single trade possibility. So do you want him or not? Do you think he's good or he's not? If you include him in every trade, you probably don't want to part with him, especially because every single fan base overrates their young players to an extent. They don't want to give them up for anything. Teams don't want to trade, like diehard Celtics fans don't want to trade like Aaron Nesmith for Damian Lillard. So the idea that Lakers fans are so willingly wanting to put Taylor Horton-Tucker into trades, that kind of shows you what they really think about him.
Yep. So Lakers are like basically the most impossible team to ever get Dame in this scenario. Pelicans, I don't think they would want to trade him there. Could you put something together with like Brandon Ingram and some other stuff? They have the picks. That could happen. I just don't know why Dame would ever be like, yeah, that's the spot for me.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, another good point by Michael Roundtree in the YouTube chat. Ty Lue's a great coach. One of the top 5 or so coaches in the league. He gets the most out of all of his players in a way that the Clippers get the most out of their players in a way that I think the only other team does is the Miami Heat.
Yeah, agreed. I'm with you. Big Ty Lue guy. Final 4 teams. Spurs. Could they do it? Yes. I mean, it's the Spurs, and I don't know what they'd be doing. Like, they wouldn't be a contender. Kings. Clearly, there's no chance he's going to the Kings.
By the
Thunder
way,
and Rockets.
The Pelicans one is low-key interesting. We haven't seen a Zion update in a minute. Let's just say, by the way, if the season ended today, the Pelicans are in the play-in game.
Yeah, they are 10 seed. Speaking of things that are interesting like that, if the season ended today, the Brooklyn Nets are the 7 seed, which means they would have to host 2 playoff games that are at home with that, which would stop Kyrie from being able to play in the 2 playoff games.
Well, it would be the first playing game would be against the Celtics.
Yeah, and if they lost, they would host the winner of Hornets Hawks, and he wouldn't be able to play in either of them. Wild.
The Nets are live to miss the playoffs.
Yeah, I'd be surprised.
Depending what happens with Durant, and then also,
I don't see the Wizards or the Knicks running them down.
Well, no, but I'm saying that you could get the Nets in the play-in. Like, is it crazy to think the Nets would lose a play-in game against the Celtics and then lose to the Hawks after that?
No, not at all. I said today, Adam and I were talking about it, of starting lineups that has played 200 or more minutes, the Celtics starting lineup of Smart, Brown, Tatum, Horford, and Robert Williams have the 3rd best plus minus of any team in the league.
You know what's even dumber about this? And also, here's something that Stephen Leibowitz and Carlos Manzo kind of posted this at the same time. Stephen Leibowitz had said by the time the playoffs happen, the rules in New York City could be different. Very true. That's a possible point. And then Carlos saying, does Brooklyn even want home court advantage? No. Brooklyn, I do not think they want home court advantage in the playoffs. They want to play as many road games as possible where they get Kyrie.
Yeah, I mean, they have to. If Kyrie is worth more than home field advantage or home court advantage, whatever you want to say here.
Yeah.
The Pelicans one would be interesting, though, but I think Ingram has to be going out, which is fine to me. I mean, I don't find him to be all that interesting, but lining up a Zion that doesn't want to be there with a 31-year-old Dame, it's a tough sell. I just don't know where he would go other than Philly to just immediately be on a title contender.
Yeah, Austin, not necessarily. If he was, depending what the trade package was, I don't think it's crazy to think if Dame was to come back healthy next year, if Zion was to come back healthy next year, that the Pelicans would be title contenders next year.
Wait, say that again?
Depending what the Pelicans were to give up in a trade for Damian Lillard. The nut scenario for this team next year, you have a core built around Valanciunas, Ingram, Zion, and Dame. I think that's a potential contender.
I think they're the 5th best team in the East. West.
So who would say, Phoenix, Golden State, Memphis, Utah better?
Phoenix, Golden State, Memphis, I think I have to say are better in that scenario. Who's healthy for the Nuggets?
I don't think Michael Porter Jr. is ever going to be healthy again. That's
Is Michael Porter Jr. more or less likely to be healthy than Zion right now?
Less. Because don't forget in the draft, there was almost every single team in the league at that point had said that Michael Porter Jr. is undraftable because he's not physically going to be able to hold up. The fact that the only thing that surprised me about Michael Porter Jr. is that it took this long for him to suffer a significant injury.
To be fair, if all 30 teams were allowed to do a medical on Zion right now, I think 15 of them are crossing him out immediately.
It's also weird because we don't know exactly what's going on. Like Zion wasn't flagged in the draft only people that flagged, by the way, Hayward's hurt.
Hurt?
Yeah. The only people that
how hurt? I don't see any tweets.
Like he missed the last 2 possessions just laying on the court, rolling around, yelling.
Is his foot still attached?
But this seems like unless he's just being really dramatic, this seems like a fairly significant injury.
So he's like Neymar right now.
No
one is tweeting this right now.
Yeah. So he had Gary Trent. It looks like Gary Trent rolled up into him.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, I'm starting to see it. If you just search for it,
it's definitely an ankle injury, and he is struggling to walk off the court. I would be very surprised if he comes back today.
Per every tweet that I'm reading, Gary Trent Jr. drives and gets hacked. No call as he lands on Gordon Hayward. Hayward down the whole play. Hornets don't foul or call timeout. Raps get the stop and break. Gary drives again. Contact at the rim not called, and he lands on Hayward again.
Yeah. So the entire play is there's like a minute of action going on. I can't believe they didn't take an intentional foul or anything like that. But yeah, Hayward was just laying under the basket, yelling, holding his leg, and is like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I'm hurt again." And they're just playing on as if nothing's going on.
That is not good for Gordon Hayward.
By the way, to Malakar's point, Zion got paid. He won't play for very long. Zion did not get paid yet. I mean, he's made money for real life people's standpoint, but you get also stupid.
His next contract is $100+ million.
I'm stunned. I knew that Gordon Hayward was $5K for his. Nobody knew he was going to get hurt.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever read.
I
wish I had less now.
We do have a super chat here from Malcolm Revamp, who says that he is Mitchell at MVP for utility. He is Mitchell at MVP who for utility in the FanDuel New York Utah single game.
You want the other 4 guys?
I like Whiteside a lot.
I don't know. I don't even know the salaries.
I like Whiteside a lot. I'll say Whiteside's my favorite tournament play there. I don't know what the salaries are.
I should have just shut my mouth and just picked a damn dude in the game.
I'm just assuming. Yeah, I'll bring it up right now. I'm
trying to.
All right. I'll just upload my projections and run a set of lines. It's going to be Whiteside. I like Whiteside a lot for the full slate of games. By the way, a lot of my lineups are going to be dead with this Hayward news. I might as well play the single game to chase some of that at this point.
Yeah, I'll run a crunch too. That's a good idea.
Oh, here they're showing it again. All right, how bad is this?
That
is a very bad ankle sprain.
Please, I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
That is, it's not a broken, it's not like a broken ankle, not like the other one, but that is as bad as you could sprain your ankle. So Gordon Hayward is a good, he's like even with the rim, and he lands awkwardly on his ankle and gets rolled into Gary Trent. Like it was a double sprained ankle. So he lands awkwardly, and then he also gets Gary Trent to roll into him. He's going to be out for a while.
All right. If I just run an unencumbered crunch, my highest utility guy is Alec Burks. And then I've got RJ Barrett and Boyan. RJ Barrett, Boyan, and Alec Burks are very clearly my top 3 utility plays.
Did you say Whiteside or no?
No, I didn't. 9%. Any thoughts on Harden for Simmons trade just announced by Ben Watson on Twitter? I don't know who Ben Watson is, but that's not a real thing right now. So no, I don't have thoughts.
Ben Watson, the former tight end for the Patriots?
I don't know. James, that's not a real thing. So
yeah. Is this like one of those things from Ball Sack Sports? Is 40 followers? Yeah. What is it? Is this yeah, it's like one of those Ball Sack Sports. Gary Sheffield Jr. wrote an article about it.
Yeah, I mean, this is a fake thing, man. So congrats on following somebody with 41 followers.
It's probably his burner account.
You just wasted $5, man. Which is not really my issue. Oh, man. Another 90 minutes down, brother. That was fun. It was a good slate for us.
Oh, wow. That was quick. I didn't even realize what time it was.
I knew if I hit you with 2 trade, we didn't even get to Levert, but I'll ask you next Monday.
Hey, we'll have other trades to talk about by then. What's the day of the trade deadline?
Thursday. 3 o'clock.
Trade deadline. All right. That'll be a good one.
I can't wait. I love the trade deadline. I live for it. Make sure you guys are watching the trade deadline show, 1:30 p.m. Eastern time, all the way up until probably 3:30. And if trades start happening at like 12:30, I'll be on even liver. Liver? I just said that. I got to get out of here. I've been talking too long. I will be live earlier than that. So yes, I am doing a trade deadline show to the people in chat that are asking. Barnes 2 early fouls. Great. That's a kick in the Jimmy. But as long as they transition that to Chris Boucher playing more minutes, it might not be the worst thing in the world. Anyway, that is it, everybody. Thank you for being here. Good luck tonight. Win some money. We're back again tomorrow doing it all again. Enjoy.